fools, you know not what you do! Romeo, thou art a villain!
My only love sprung from my only hate.
Romeo so tippled! Romeo must not live!
Leonardo DiCaprio, Claire Danes in William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
I am fortune's war!
Rated PG-13.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day. It's our Valentine's Day weekend episode.
It is. How about that? Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Goodness gracious. Well, this was a very fun movie. I'm glad we finally got around to it.
Yes, we've been talking about this movie for a while. We have a very special guest.
Yes, indeed.
So,
very happy to
let's
be
do
here
it.
where we're recording. Everybody out there listening, my name's Pete.
And I'm Scott, and these are the movies that made us gay.
Yes, indeed. Scott, can you introduce our wonderful guest and our host for the evening, and let's talk about what movie we just watched.
So we watched Romeo and Juliet, released November 1st, 1996, of course directed by one Mr. Baz Luhrmann, with very good friend of both Pete and I, Espie Quintero.
Yay.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to
Okay.
the show, Espie.
I'm so excited because I listen to you guys religiously.
Yes.
And
I'm
we've talked about you on the show, too.
Okay, so here's the thing. Every time I listen to you guys, and you guys are like, we've been talking about this for a while. I'm like, really? You're excited about every movie? You've been talking about this for... I'm like, no, this is true about us. We have. I was like, now
It's
I
always
believe
true.
it. I believe it. 'Cause I'm like, really? And I was like, no, we've been talking about this for like...
This one's been
3
in
years?
the works
Yeah.
for a while. I think pretty much since season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since we started
We've
the
wanted
show.
to do this movie with you.
Yes.
And also this movie has been requested by guests too, or this movie has been requested by listeners. So it's a movie that I think people are really excited for us to talk about.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And can I just say, Pete and I have been friends since I was in the 8th grade, people.
Yeah?
Yes.
Wild.
A long time. And I was a 27-year-old man. No. You were all but 12.
Yes.
No. We have known each other we've known each other longer than we haven't known each other. And so, I say a lot, if people try to get me on something, one of my big comebacks, one of my go-to retorts is, you don't know my life. She does know my life.
I really do.
I can't say that to her.
I'm
Actually,
like,
she
Peter,
knows.
I do. We've seen each other through all our tragic styles, but all our coolness too. But
Yes,
anyway, I just had to say, I love your podcast episode.
you.
I listen to it whenever I go grocery shopping because I don't like going grocery shopping.
Okay.
And so you guys, I'm cracking
We're
up in the aisle,
companions.
laughing at the meat,
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for having me.
Oh,
Let's
well,
do this.
thank you for coming on the show.
I'm very honored to help you pick out fruit. Yes.
I mean, hello.
Who better? So, Romeo and Juliet, man.
Romeo and Juliet, I feel like now you've just become one of our friends that whenever I think of this movie, I immediately think of you.
Oh.
And I think that we've watched it together
Yeah.
at least once.
We did
Two.
last year.
We
Well,
did
during the
last year.
pandemic for Valentine.
Oh, okay.
This is true, yeah.
Yeah, because you guys were our pandemic buddies, mine and my husband. We were very safe, and we would quarantine. But
Yeah.
we watched it together.
Wow. And so, okay, a lot of times, usually at the top of the show, we talk about where we were the first time we saw this movie or how we were introduced to it. I don't remember. It's been that long.
So I was pretty young when this movie came out. I think that I was probably 11 years old when I watched it, but I grew up with siblings that were teenage and junior high girls. So I was very familiar with this movie as a kid, and probably one of the first big cultural experiences with William Shakespeare was through Baz's Romeo plus Juliet.
Yeah.
It's just that movie just felt like the biggest movie of all time. I mean, I used to watch MTV a lot at my dad's house. It was all over MTV. This soundtrack was gigantic.
Oh my god, the sound when we talked about this, I was like, you guys, how are we going to approach this? Costumes, music, actors. It's just there's so much good stuff, great candy. I think in this movie.
And
absolutely.
I remember my sisters being really into Leo, and I remember my sister Nicole had a framed photo of Leo from this movie.
As if he was her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My boyfriend
I
Leo.
think that she had
amazing.
probably
Love
cut
it.
it out of like YM magazine or something.
yeah. As you
and
do.
it was Leo, I think, in the night costume.
Okay.
Espie, when did you first watch Romeo and Juliet?
Well, I was a senior when this movie came out. So
Target audience.
Senior, right?
Made for you.
And I was in love with Claire Danes for My So-Called Life, and still upset that they had canceled it. I knew of Leonardo DiCaprio, but I really hadn't followed his work up to this point. I just knew he was a heartthrob.
Yeah.
But I remember when I saw the preview, I was like, what the? And I just could not wait. And so I know the first time I went to see it was with my then boyfriend, but I think I saw this movie at least 4 times in the theater.
Yeah.
I was obsessed. Let me tell you, Scott, and Pete can attest to this.
Sure.
I was so obsessed that I sewed my own angel wings to wear to prom.
Iconic.
Right? And I remember my sisters were like, you're going to regret that when you're an adult. You're going to look back. And guess what?
Joke's on them.
I'm a fucking lady now. And I'm like, nope, no regrets.
And when I tell you that she made these wings, the feathers are like hand sewn.
Yes.
They're insane. They look like professionally
Because they weren't available.
No,
I went looking everywhere. I mean, now you can find angel wings
yeah,
everywhere.
anywhere.
Back then, I went to costumes rentals.
Yeah.
You cannot find angel wings. And I was like, well, I'm just going to sew these.
I mean,
to make 'em.
Catherine Martin, the wife of Baz, I mean, she had to do the same thing. So they had to make them for the movie. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you being like 17 years old,
I was
just made your own.
obsessed. If I could have, I would have dressed my boyfriend up like a knight. We just couldn't find that anywhere. So
Yeah, I mean, that chainmail just looks really complicated to make.
I know. But I'm saying this is the obsession. It was real.
Would the nuns have let him in a night costume? And
I
not
talked to
suits?
the nuns about it. I was like, if my boyfriend came like this, and they're like, well, last year this girl came Renaissance and her boyfriend came Renaissance and we approved it before.
Okay.
They're like, so I don't see why not, because they saw why I was doing it.
Right.
And they were all about it.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
And it's
kind
like,
of amazing.
it's also pretty Catholic. I mean, you get like
The angel,
an angel
And it's
in a night.
Shakespeare.
yeah, and it's Shakespeare.
Yeah, so it's like literary.
Well, that's what I do remember about me being introduced to this movie is that we read. I'll never forget. I talk about this kind of a lot. That when I want to say a sophomore, that Brother Cecil taught us. We read, and I still have the book to this day. It's a single book, and it has both scripts for Romeo and Juliet and West Side Story.
Yes.
In the same book.
So cool.
And we read that in Brother Cecil's I don't remember if it was drama or English. I think it was a drama class. And so I was really familiar with the text of Romeo and Juliet because I had just learned it in school, and Brother Cecil was an amazing teacher. He was really fun. He was one of my favorite teachers. He was very flamboyant. And when I call him Brother Cecil, I was taught by Christian Brothers at a
We both went to Catholic school.
Yeah.
You were all boy, I was all girls Catholic school.
Yeah. And although you had uniforms and we did not.
Yes. But Pete and his friends would come to my school after school and pick us up.
Yes, we would.
And you
go to your dances.
I was going to say, you guys used to go to each other's dances.
Oh, yeah. Pete went to all our proms except our senior prom because you had to babysit Jamie.
I did. My
But you-
sister was a baby.
Yeah, so you came to the after party after. But we digress.
Yes.
You
But yeah, so I remember just being very familiar with the Romeo and Juliet as well as West Side Story kind of text. And so when this movie came around, what I do remember is a lot of the MTV spots where they would, kind of reassure the audience, the way we deliver these lines, it's the text. We didn't update, because I think one of the big things was kind of controversy that it was this updated Romeo and Juliet, right? Which we have to talk about how it is updated, because it is set in a modern world, but it's not quite it's like the Warriors kind of, it's not our
No,
world.
actually what I love that Baz Luhrmann
Yeah.
did is it's timeless.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
sense. You don't know when it is.
It's set in its own universe.
Yeah, because the cars, those cars
No,
are
they don't
nuts.
exist. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people were like, oh, why are they updating it? And then they ultimately did they do Othello. That
Yes,
was
they
updated
did.
with-
They updated it, and
Yeah.
it was in I think it was in a Catholic school.
Yeah. And, things like that. And those don't always work well, and they eventually become a little bit dated. But I feel like with this one, they used the text.
And they
right?
don't wrap
And they're not rapping or something
Anything.
stupid. Yeah, it's very Saved by the Bell. But the way that these actors deliver the lines, you have these great adult actors in it.
Yeah.
Pete Postlethwaite and the actors who are the parents, who are, Lady Capulet and, Brian Dennehy and Paul Sorvino as Capulet and Montague.
And don't forget Monica and
Ross's
mother.
mom from
Yep,
Friends,
from
Christina
Friends.
Pickles.
That's right.
Christina
Yeah.
Pickles. Second movie we've done of hers. She was in Masters
She's
of the
in
Universe.
Masters. She's the
Yep.
sorceress.
Also, we should mention second Jamie Kennedy movie back to back.
Oh yeah, we just did
I
Scream.
was thinking about that.
We can talk about those
We
scenes
just did
later.
Scream too. So you have these heavy hitters playing the adult characters, and Pete Postlethwaite is like this actor of like some important.
And he looks like a priest.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
you could throw him into an air or like a drug dealer.
Yeah,
Like one of the or
right,
same,
absolutely.
or
Yeah,
one or the other.
And I think they're playing it pretty straight. I mean, everybody's playing it straight. Nobody's playing it jokey. But I think that the younger actors, and I think in particular Leo and Claire, just have this kind of naturalistic kind of way of expressing themselves.
They have fun with Romeo's friends
that you
too.
just kind of understand what they're saying.
Totally. My husband Polo and I were watching this movie and we're like, yeah, like when you watch it in this context, you understand why they're reciting it the way they are. Like when you just read it, I remember freshman year going home with my
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet book and being so freaking excited
Yeah.
because I'm going to read this love story. And I open it and I'm like,
What?
is happening? And like, but when you watch it the way they're delivering it, you're like, oh, that's what that means, And Polo was saying, even if I didn't understand what they were saying, their actions, their reactions, the expressions.
Yeah,
is
and
clear.
especially just how Baz directs all of the actors too.
Yeah.
That you can easily know what's going on as opposed to just straight up reading it.
Right.
Well, last night as we were watching
Seeing
it,
the story through images.
Yeah. I pulled up the script online because it's it's Shakespeare. Nobody really owns it. It's just public domain, so you can I just pulled it up online. I could have gone and got my book, but I didn't. Probably turned to dust. It's so old.
In the wind.
Bye. But so I pull up the script, and they're saying these lines, and then I'm like finding the scenes. I'm like, okay, here we are. And as I'm reading it, I'm just like, what the hell? When you read it on the page, it just these actors are really like they know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like I wouldn't be able to have the imagination to say, what if I said it this way? What if I put this inflection here or there? And even like, Nurse and like all, and she's like so good. She's a comedic actress. That's Miriam Margolyes. And,
Not Hispanic.
not Latina. She is British.
Not Latina.
Really?
She's British. Yep.
As being a Latina woman on this
She's
podcast,
believable.
I'm like, oh, really?
She just looked like one of your tias.
She really, and I was like, she plays that stereotypical role, which, now isn't really acceptable. But that's the tia, But you know what I love is that I know she's written as a comic relief from Shakespeare, but she's not so like ridiculous in this.
Yes.
Like honestly, it's like, I do have a tia like that.
Yeah.
That relationship, the way the banter,
Yeah.
but the way they take care of you as well. Like, I totally relate to
Well,
that.
not to get too into the West Side Story, of it all, but that character is the analogy for Anita, So it's like she is a little bit more than just like the maid or whatever. So
Right.
she's like and last night I feel like more than ever I'm watching this and I'm just like, man, Juliet is so isolated. She has nobody.
Yeah.
The nurse is her only friend.
Yes. Oh my God. And we'll, I don't know
Yeah.
when we get into it, but that scene where the dad loses shit on the mom and like she just leaves her there and like her nurse is her only comfort.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God. And it just shows you, but that's true, especially in those cultures, in the Latino cultures where the parents do have a lot of money and the nanny is basically raising the kid. That is the person that you're going to turn to when you're in doubt and pain, Anyway, so.
Yeah, no, the actors are all like, they're doing their job. They're doing stuff that like, and that's the thing. I suggest like, find the script and take a look at it. Like I said, it's online, it's free. You don't have to go out and buy it or anything. But it's just one of those things that if you're not an actor, you just don't have, I just don't have the instincts to make it real.
Well,
the way
Shakespeare
they do.
is writing it like a script, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like he's giving you a
It's a play,
narration where
yeah.
he's saying, you know, and then Romeo's
feel
feeling
like
like
that.
this,
Mhm.
or, you know,
Yeah.
you don't know the subtext of what's
Yeah.
going on with the parents. And they give you this in this
Yeah.
movie. They
Yeah.
give you so much subtext, like just,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
I want to talk a little bit about what you said, touched briefly on how we couldn't really get away with having maybe a character like the nurse today.
Well, especially I think with the casting of Claire Danes. And I was thinking last night, I was like, okay, so they're drawing from Latino and Hispanic culture of that, just sort of this environment
For the Capulets.
is very Mexico. It's a rich Latin family that I was trying to think last night. I was like, who could they have brought in that was a Latina at the time that could draw people into the seats? And I really couldn't think of anyone.
Well, that's the thing, like today, again, going back to something like West Side Story, I feel like it's more important to get the casting right for culturally and bring in somebody that we don't know.
Right.
Like this actress who was Maria, she was so good.
Yeah.
But like none of us knew her. Like I'm sure she had a couple of credits, but Rachel Zegler, I think her name is.
Yeah, Rachel Zegler.
Not a name,
Talking about the new Spielberg West Side Story.
Spielberg West Side Story. In 1996, when they're making this movie, there was no question that they had to get the two leads had to be teen stars.
Right.
They had to be pop, culturally relevant.
Right.
And I don't think it was ever a question, well, maybe let's go for an unknown Latina girl so we can make it fit into our storyline.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
They had to get somebody like Claire Danes.
Okay, but there's not getting too
But are they
political, but there's a
even
classist thing in
Sure.
Mexico
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Because you have the fair skin, Latinos versus the darker skin, and unfortunately, they're usually the help.
Yeah.
There's so much
Colorism.
discrimination
Just
within
turn
that
on like
too.
a telenovela or the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Colorism is absolutely real.
So there's something to be said there. too.
And the thing is, the actress who is Lady Capulet, Jessica Lange.
Diana,
I'm not familiar with her.
Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah.
I was like,
She looks like
I was like Jerry Hall,
Jerry Hall.
Jessica Lange.
She's doing a very Jerry Hall
Isn't
kind
she?
of performance because she's saying these lines with a Southern accent.
Yeah.
Crazy. But she's very clearly like a white woman, and Paul Sorvino even is Italian.
Is Italian.
So
That's what I was going to say. There is
yeah.
no like consistency.
The only thing is Tybalt, John Leguizamo, and then all of his
Diane Verona.
Okay,
She's also in the Ethan Hawke Hamlet.
is it
too.
Verona like Romeo and Juliet Verona?
Venora.
Okay.
Diane Venora, excuse
Okay.
me.
But yeah, John Leguizamo and then his friends at the very first scene of the movie.
Yeah.
All those guys that come out, those are Latin guys.
Yeah, and John Leguizamo is what, Colombian?
He's Colombian.
Yeah, okay.
As we found out in Encanto.
Yes, so I haven't seen Encanto
Oh, you
yet.
gotta
I
see
know.
it.
I got to see it with my parents too.
you'd
Oh,
like
you should
Encanto.
watch it with
I
your parents, yeah.
know. I'm probably going
It's
to
good.
cry. But okay, so let's talk about the setup. Just the fact that Baz Luhrmann chose to do it in these Latin countries, right?
Yes,
He chose
yeah.
Mexico City. He chose Boca del Rio and Veracruz. Or no, Boca del Rio is Veracruz. And then he did Miami. And I think...
They shot some of it in Miami?
Yeah,
Oh,
Miami
wow.
Beach. Miami
Okay,
Beach.
cool.
And what I think is so cool
tracks.
about these settings is the economic divide
Yes.
is
Yes.
so strong.
Yes.
The rich are really, really rich, and the poor are really, really poor.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with our treaties with NAFTA and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
we got to take that responsibility. But okay, so there's that. So I think that backdrop is so true to what's happening with these two feuding families,
Right.
Right? They're mafia families, but they own these big empires,
Corporations,
right?
yeah.
And then you see that, like, if you watch or if you follow the stories of the narcotraficantes, it's just like you have these guys at the top, but then the youth is running amok.
Yeah.
The generations further down are running amok in the street because they have all this money.
Yeah. And
You know?
access to weapons and all. Yeah.
All that.
Yeah. That's so crazy. And when you really kind of freeze frame and pay attention, that's there. All that
Yeah.
stuff
Oh my
is
God!
there
Can
in
we
this
talk
movie.
about
it's very
the
clever.
opening
Yeah.
when they're doing those shots that looks like the news, and it's the militia, that's enforcing the law. That's very true. There is footage of that in the 80s when the drug
Yeah.
wars were going on. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is an influence of the drug wars.
Yeah.
And these guys, especially like, I think the Capulets, it's also a nod to the Sharks being
Right.
the Latinos,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Being the
yeah.
Latinos, but also with their religious tattoos with the Virgin Mary on their back, like that's what gangsters do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you don't want to get raped in jail or you want to make somebody uncomfortable. You put a tattoo of the Virgin de Guadalupe on your back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was all over that, guys.
Yeah.
I'm all, that's what I got to say.
And also
Yeah.
just sort of this political context that, I mean, I could see a lot of people in Hollywood, if Baz was that like forward with that as themes with them, they would probably say no way, like no fucking way. But Baz just sort of slips it in, and it's so seamless that I could see it going over a lot of people's heads. Like it's stuff that when I was a kid, I would have never even thought about.
I didn't think about it till now. Like, no, it's true, guys. Like back then I was just like, it's so beautiful. There's so many colors, you know?
But yeah, we were watching it last night, and when you get those opening shots of the Montague boys going down the road, Pete's like, oh yeah, that's fully like a Mexico City freeway.
Oh, totally. And okay, so let's talk about our introduction.
The opening. So
that scene.
you asked me off mic what my favorite scene of the movie is, and I think it's this opening setup.
Really?
Of the Montagues and the Capulets, because it's that way that Baz directs movies that it's that thing that Baz does when he directs movies, and he did the same thing in the Moulin Rouge. That the first 10 minutes of this movie, everything is just cranked up to 100, just because he kind of wants to tell the audience, I'm going to take you on a fucking ride.
Yeah.
And these 10 minutes are just so exhilarating.
Yeah.
But you have to, as an audience member, you're watching it going, okay, that's what this movie's going to be.
Yeah.
And so now I'm kind of in this mindset of like the fast cuts and the editing and the, sped
And
up.
it's later kind of like calmed down
It's
a little
toned
bit.
down, yeah.
Like after like minute 15 of this movie.
Well, when you get introduced to Juliet, and I want to go back to this gas station
Yes,
scene, but the minute you get introduced to her, you're absolutely right. She's isolated. She's in her own world. And that's when you're like, oh, there's a breath. She's-
Introduced underwater,
Yeah.
that she's almost like suffocating and she doesn't have room for air.
Or like the Little
Too.
Mermaid.
Yep.
No, just kidding.
Okay.
She's a
she's
part of your world.
And she's got that good underwater wig on at that point.
Oh, we'll talk. We're going to put a pin in Claire Danes'
in
wig.
Claire's
The
hair.
wig, that's a whole topic, guys.
So I remember
Those bangs.
being
It's a whole
kid
episode.
and watching the first 10 minutes of these movies, and I'm like 11 years old. I'm seeing all of these cute boys, all sweaty, their shirts open. Jamie Kennedy licks his nipple
That's right.
in that opening
He
scene
does.
when like
And he has pink hair.
he has
pretty
pink
piece of
hair.
flesh.
Yeah.
And there's like the whole back and forth with like the sisters
Yeah.
too.
nuns, yeah.
And the nuns.
Yeah.
The novices. Okay, so
Yeah.
we have this introduction of the two families, and I love how stylized it is.
Yeah.
I love that the Montague boys are like this surfer punk, but with their dog tags, it's like they have these army crew cuts. So it's like they've been in the army. That's why they're so violent, you know. And then we get to introduce Kim Barrett and Catherine Martin, like their costume design. These hand painted Hawaiian shirts,
Yeah,
Hawaiian
I was
shirts.
going to say
so
they have
cool.
to be. Yeah, they're insane. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the clothes stand out so much, and Leo, just the image of Leo in this blue like flower shirt. And doesn't Friar Lawrence start off wearing the shirt and he gives it to him later on? It's
Which
like-
is, if you look at it really, both Claire Danes and Leo are subdued the whole time. Their costumes are a lot more chill than everybody else.
He's introduced in the white shirt.
Yeah.
Too.
But so in this gasoline station scene, that's your favorite, where we get introduced. We see very stylized, like the Capulets have this more Spanish cowboy flair.
Yeah.
Vaquero?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it has that, like, also it's very sophisticated.
Yeah.
The
boots, like the steel boots.
everything was handmade, guys.
It had to be, yeah.
But it was, and they had
Yeah.
local artisans do them. They said that the only thing that they borrowed was like Leo's Prada suit on the wedding scene.
Sure.
But the boots were handmade.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah, because all the little thing on Tybalt's boots on his heel,
The
it's a
silver?
cat, the like silver. So it's like, that had to be like hand pressed. It's like you can't buy this stuff off the rack, and their guns, like all the iconography on the Capulet boys' weaponry had all the religious iconography on them. That's not something.
but
you
the
can
Montagues
buy.
too. If you look at their Hawaiian shirts, they have,
Oh yeah,
But okay, so. Also, when I saw the gasoline station, it kind of reminded me of Zoolander.
A little bit.
I mean, which came after.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh.
gas fight.
Like he's like the way they're dressed, the way they're hanging out of their cars. You know, it's just like, oh, it's kind of like Zoolander.
Yeah, totally.
So we see this introduction, this big brawl that sets up the scene, right?
Yeah.
What's happening. And then we cut quickly to the Capulets' house. And yes, houses like that in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in the Condesa, you have these huge houses gated off. Some of them have these high gates with barbed wire too, you know?
This, it's just so disconnected to the rest of the city.
Yeah.
That you would never even know that this poverty even exists inside these walls of this house.
Yeah, there is that disconnection. And so we see Claire Danes with Gavin Friday's Angel,
Yeah.
right? That song echoing in the background,
Yeah.
facing down, which we then see that view of Leo when he's in the bathroom, right? When the party
Right,
scene
yeah,
comes
yeah,
in.
because he's high on Molly or whatever, so he's trying to
MDMA.
like, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
they're
where we get
echoing.
introduced to her, right? And so that's what we're saying, how we want to like really focus on the costumes in these scenes and
Yeah.
the music. And to me, I really want to bring up the water too.
Yes, it's such a theme like throughout the entire movie, and not just with the two of them, with other characters. You know, with Tybalt and all of them. John Leguizamo, I want to talk a little bit about his styling,
Yeah.
you know, and the Tybalt character. And if you watch the Zeffirelli Romeo and Juliet, which we all love, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Did you see that in high school?
Yes, we did. And I remember our teacher commenting
You see
on
Romeo's
his tan.
button-it.
Yeah, and our teacher commented, she was like, how do you think he got those tan lines? You know, because
Right?
if he's wearing tights, why did he lay out in a
Yeah,
Speedo?
briefs.
So we watched this one in high school.
Okay.
You watched the Baz Luhrmann
We watched the Baz
version.
one.
You're
That's
reminding
amazing.
us how
Yep.
young
How
you are.
young-
Get out of my
yeah.
house.
Yeah, we had to watch the Zeffirelli version in high
Yes.
school, but you know, in that version we get Michael York
Oh,
as Tybalt,
and
right?
also 60s Michael York,
60s
so
Michael
cute.
York, get right out of town, right? And the thing about the Tybalt character, he's described in the book or in the play, the Prince of Cats, right? And he's described as having a very showy kind of fighting style. And they really did that with...
And you can definitely see it in John's performance
Yes.
in this movie.
He had a lot of like very like dancerly kind of like movements.
Almost like flamenco, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
What thou drawn among these heartless hinds? Turn thee, Benvolio, and look upon thy death.
I do but keep the peace. Put up thy sword, or manage to depart these men with me.
Peace? Peace? I hate the word, as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee.
Oh, and another thing that they did that I think I heard this in the commentary like years ago is that they like Baz and I think Catherine Martin and he has a co-writer, I can't remember his name, but they came up with all of these kind of like rules for these kids in the society that they have, because the thing is, it's like they all have guns, so it's like they're just gonna have a shoot. You know, Romeo and Tybalt have a duel. Tybalt and Mercutio have a duel. So it's like they're just going to stand there and shoot each other.
Right.
So they had to come up with these kind of elaborate kind of rules that they all kind of followed, like this code. And so jumping ahead a little bit, there's that thing where they pull out each other's guns and they take out every bullet but one, so that they do have kind of more of a classical kind of duel, and it's a little bit more fair, I guess you could say. So they went through the trouble of coming up with this like very real society that the audience has
No idea. It goes over. It just
Yeah.
goes over their head. They're just not making it violent for the sake of making it
but when
violent.
you watch it, you're going, "What are they doing?"
Yeah.
You know, because it's Tybalt doesn't pull out his own gun. His
his
cousin,
right arm, his main guy.
Yeah, his lieutenant,
there we go.
Comes in and does it for him and shows everybody only one bullet left in the magazine and puts it back in, and Mercutio tries to do it for Romeo and Romeo doesn't let him do it. We'll talk about that. But it's like, it's this kind of code that's there because, we've got guns instead of swords. And so it's just how layered all of this shit is. And I feel like Tybalt is the one where you see, and his outfit is the most layered, the most like elaborate. He's got these like flamenco moves.
We are commenting on his little waist and those
his like
pants.
27-inch.
I think that's for the party when he's dressed up as the devil and he's sort of
he wears those vests.
He's wearing like a vest or some sort of like a cummerbund. And you just see John's like teeny little waist in that.
Yeah, and what I wanted to get at too is I was reflecting on how you feel like you're walking into chaos when this movie starts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there is actually consistency, like how you're saying.
There's
like,
rules to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just chaos.
Yeah.
Like it's well thought out chaos.
Well, what I was thinking was it almost feels like the Capulets' wardrobe. I don't know if it is, but it almost feels like their vests. They all are wearing vests, and they almost look like Kevlar, like bulletproof vests.
Yes, yes.
And the Montagues are all wearing open Hawaiian shirts with nothing, no T-shirt, just open shirt, no body armor at all. So the Montagues are they just a little bit more like crazy, a little bit more like we don't care?
Yeah,
kind of like a live free and die hard sort of
Well, I think the
philosophy.
Montagues, I think there is they're inferring that they have been in war. Mm-hmm. That's why these boys have dog tags on.
Yeah.
And now, after you've been in those trenches,
picked up on that.
Yeah,
and that's kind of,
and they have those crew cuts.
Yeah, and one of them straight up bald, which is another military.
So I think once you've been in those trenches, you're like, psh,
yeah,
we didn't wear no bulletproof
I'm
vests.
not going to wear Kevlar on the street.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
I'm home. But the Capulets, they're all wearing these vests that are like,
But I also feel like the Capulets have this like state of the art and everything.
Yes,
like they're going to have the latest in everything
because they're a little bit more rich, or maybe more new rich.
Yeah,
so they're like, we're gonna get gadgets and things like that. Yeah.
I would say that the Montagues are more working class, but I mean, their parents seem.
Yeah,
their parents pull up in a limo.
Yeah, Brian.
So
I think it's very telling of and I say this loosely, but like American money.
Yeah,
kids,
sure.
Rich kids with American money will come off very different from the fresas, which they call them in Mexico. Like those are more like the stuck-up, preppy Mexican with money, But over there, they don't want you to remotely think they're from the streets.
Right.
They want the finest, the classiest. I mean, they look like pageantry.
Yeah.
Even in the towns that have less money, the women, like, they don't want to look like they don't have money.
Right.
So the way you look is really important.
Yeah.
I say it all loosely.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, I've heard. Because I am not an expert.
Yeah. So, but I mean, this is all just to say that these filmmakers, who, by the way, are from Australia.
Yeah.
So what even reference do they have for North American, Latin America? Like, they had to do so much research, but they did it all in a way that we as Americans and Latin America are just like, this all tracks.
Yeah.
This all makes a lot of sense.
All the religious iconography,
Yeah.
I was being raised as a Mexican Catholic. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Mexican Catholic. I was just like, this resonates. Like, all of this is my teenage life, guys. Minus all the money.
Did you have Juliet's little Virgin of Guadalupe
like altar?
Altar?
Well, I didn't have her altar, but like, if you walked into my house, like, you could categorize how many crucifixes there are in my parents' house, rosaries, Virgen de Guadalupe. I mean,
but I mean, even in Juliet's bedroom, there were like stickers on the door, but it was all like religious stuff. But it was like they still went out of their way to make it look like
a teen room.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about this party or?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to discuss.
Ball.
I would like to first discuss Claire Danes. So you said that you grew up on Party of Five.
No.
Or you said,
yes,
So-called
but
you said that. I'm sorry. You said that you grew up on My So-Called Life.
Yes, yes. I would wait for the next episode.
It was so good.
And Pete and I were pissed.
Oh my god,
when that thing ended.
Yeah.
And then Polo brought up, he's all, why didn't they use Jordan Catalano as Romeo?
I mean,
probably discussed.
Knocked my socks off.
Looking at all of the actresses that they read for Juliet is very interesting. I'd like to read off some of them. Apparently, Sarah Michelle Gellar got very far in the audition and was almost more or less cast, but according to the internet, she had too many commitments to the soap that she was doing, All My Children. So she couldn't.
On Swan's Crossing. Who was on Swan's Crossing?
She was on Swan's Crossing.
That was Sarah.
Yeah,
she was on All My Children at the time, so she couldn't. She couldn't sort of
get out of that.
Her commitment to that interfered. Other actresses that had read for the role of Juliet: Jennifer Love Hewitt, Aaliyah, Kate Winslet, and Christina Ricci.
What about Natalie Portman? She read
and Natalie Portman,
and she was 13, and they're saying she was really good, but he was 21 and she was 13.
It's just the age difference looked too big, and she just looked like a child.
And when she was that age in Beautiful Girls, she looked very young.
Yeah, and I love her in that movie.
She's she's good in it. Although that whole relationship is so wildly inappropriate.
We just did a revisit of Beautiful Girls.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
I know it's so inappropriate, you guys.
We're like, whoa, this is crazy.
And I guess that they read Claire Danes with Leo, and Leo said that Claire was the only one that actually looked at him and really played the scene with him.
Yeah, that she looked him in the eyes, right?
She looked him in the eyes when reading the lines.
All right.
And Leo...
She wasn't staring at the bulge.
Had to insist on... Leo had to insist on casting Claire.
Okay.
So I guess he had a big part of casting her.
Yeah.
And she was one of his favorites that he read with.
But did you read that they didn't get along? Like that she had a crush on him?
I had heard that.
And that comes out repeatedly, that she did have a crush on him, but that she found him really immature because he would play all these pranks.
I mean, it's also...
and he thought she was too frigid.
It's Leo from 96.
Or rigid.
Yeah.
I could see both of it.
I could see both sides.
Yeah, I could see both of that. Because I could also see her taking that role very seriously and being like, I ain't got time for your...
And it's one of those things that, I love SMG, the next gay. I grew up on Buffy, but I just don't really think this is in Sarah's wheelhouse to do a role like this. Not saying that she couldn't, and probably if she was in this movie, her career would have probably gone a very different direction, and you may have seen her in more movies. But especially the last section of this movie when Claire Danes breaks out the crying face.
Yeah.
Well, that's what she does.
You're like, holy shit.
That's Claire Danes' Old Faithful, that cry face.
Oh, yeah. And that, the way she does it, it's so ugly, but it's so
She's
good.
so good.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Claire Danes and Leo throw some really good tantrums in this movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is teenage psychosis, breakdown. You don't understand.
Everything's the end of the world.
Yeah.
It really is. And they play it well. Yeah. And it's so believable, and that's how you feel.
It's just kids, can't you just cool it for a month?
So
wait
we were
this
talking
out
last night a little bit about casting, and Scott said, do you think Drew read for it?
Because I'm sure Drew is reading for everything at the time.
I'm sure she wanted to, or maybe she submitted a tape, but I don't know that she would have been able to get this kind of performance.
I mean,
out of 1995 Drew Barrymore.
What about the first 10 minutes of Scream though, where she has to
that's one
scream
scene
and cry in that movie?
I think honestly, intuitively, I feel like Drew Barrymore already had such a career.
That's kind of what I thought too.
That we know her as even in Scream.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Drew Barrymore being very dramatic, and she's really good at doing drama. What is it? Not Boys on the Side. Not writing in Boys.
Boys on the Side.
Yeah.
Boys on the Side. Yeah, I'm mixing up two of her movies, but she does drama well. But I wouldn't be able to take away the fact that's Drew Barrymore.
Right.
That's Drew Barrymore.
And the other thing too is that she's actually, I want to say she's younger than Leo.
Is she?
But that's the thing. I think Juliet needs to read on camera as very, very young, and I think to our eyes, she's just too much of his contemporary, and she's been around in the industry longer, so she almost comes across as older than him.
Would almost read older, sure.
You're right.
I
think you're right. All the
Yeah.
experience she has, in the industry and in life, makes you think that Drew Barrymore's 30.
Yes, because she's the right age, but I feel like there would have been too much of a disconnect with the audience. So
especially for this time.
Yeah.
In
So
Drew's
maybe
career.
it did have to be Claire, but I don't know. Was Gwyneth busy?
I mean,
or was she too old? I don't know. Maybe she wouldn't have read.
Gwyneth
the right
would
age.
have read older than Leo, and also Gwyneth, I think, was considered as Rose in Titanic. And that's the thing, is that Leo made
why I brought her up.
this and Titanic back to back. I mean, when I look at Leo's filmography in this time, and I'm seeing all of these movies that he made year after year after year, did that kid step foot in a classroom at all in the 90s? Did he go to school? It's
who
like,
knows?
What's Eating Gilbert
On set,
Grape,
yeah.
A Boy's Life, Marvin's Room, Romeo and Juliet, Titanic, Man in the Iron
He
Mask.
has an equivalency to
He
that.
came out of his mother's womb with a script in his hand.
So Drew was born in February 75 and Leo November of 74. So they're
Really?
months apart.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have never.
Yeah.
So she was 21 around that at the time
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Interesting.
I'm glad that we got Claire.
Yes. No, I think she was perfect.
It's iconic.
And I think Baz Luhrmann really knew what he was doing.
Yes.
Getting these like hot teen,
Yeah.
you know,
These
pop-
hot teen actors that could act too.
Yes,
It's
you're
not
right.
like you're getting like a Disney star that's done like a few sitcoms.
Okay,
they had major movies.
Well, here's my question.
Under their belt.
Did Claire Danes pull the Kerry Russell, America Ferrera, and win a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Drama the first year of My So-Called Life?
Yes.
I think she did.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And that's
I think
fitting to the Globes. They
'cause
usually do that to young
They
actresses.
give the young
Yeah.
ingenue on their 1st season of a show Best Actress in a Drama. So at the time, Claire Danes was like, whoa.
And she was in Little Women too.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was. I
Her
forgot
scenes
about
in
that.
Little
You're
Women
right.
are really good.
Yeah.
Beth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's great. It had to be her, but iconically, she had a bob.
Oh, yeah. And enter the wig.
Okay, so-
this wig.
Do we want a separate
So
episode?
I love this movie, but I sort of have a bone to pick with the styling of her hair.
I'm glad that they kept her in the like auburn red family because that's how we knew her at the time. She looks great as a
Yeah.
blonde. In her adult life, she's mostly been blonde,
Right.
and it works for her. But at the time, she was, she had this red hair. So I'm okay with
not
the
to be
color.
one of those wig gays, but I mean, there's just something how
Such
this
a wig
wig fits on her head that I just don't like it. If
The
I
front
was,
of it's weird.
If
What's
I
I
was
feel like
like,
it's so thick at the top,
At the top,
and
yeah.
then like it just like wisps.
you know, I always look at the part.
I wish you guys could see my hand
It's
motion.
doing a little wispy.
Like,
My eyes always just go to the part right in the center.
Yeah.
There's just something up with the style of it.
but I feel like there's like 1.5 inch worth of like.
yeah,
I don't.
right
I
there in
wish,
the
how do I
front.
describe
No,
this, Peter?
It's,
What am I doing?
It's indescribable. It's
It's a
problem.
feeling.
mean,
you look at it and it
you just
evokes a
know
feeling.
that
Like
it's
it's just
wrong.
hot, really, at the crown.
It's a lot of heat.
And then,
A lot
but
of
if you
heat
pull
right
it
here.
into a low ponytail, it's a thin ponytail.
No, yeah, there's not a lot of like
Volume.
or yeah. It's-
But I'll tell you what I do love is for her angel costume, the way they wrapped her hair to make it look like a halo.
yeah.
I
Oh,
think
sure.
that's
Okay,
so
yeah.
pretty.
The wig
Marsh-
looks
the
the,
Marsha
best.
Brady.
The wig looks the best in the angel costume.
It really does.
So we should probably talk about the party now.
okay. I do like the pile of hair that she has when they're getting married.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The big
She put a
updo,
pencil in
yeah,
that shit.
a couple pencils in there. But
Okay.
yeah, this costume party is kind of crazy.
Okay, but okay, hold on, you guys. All right,
right.
because then you had the Montague boys getting ready for this party.
Yeah.
That part is really
And
cool,
also,
too.
Yeah, can we talk?
also-
Because
scene.
I mean, although we haven't physically shown off that way, like that pre-party,
Yeah.
and like let's F that girl Rosalind,
Yeah.
Rosaline, who is the Tino of Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, the Tina. We never see Rosaline. She's off camera.
Like,
Yeah.
the Devon Graham of Halloween.
Yep.
Like these characters that
God,
we're making
off-camera,
plans
yeah.
around them, but they don't exist.
But they never show up. She never
Yeah.
bothers.
So this is where we meet Mercutio.
Mercutio.
Okay.
Love
I mean-
Mercutio in this movie.
Played by Harold Perrineau of Lost fame. He's so good in this.
Yeah, he's great.
I mean, that's all I got, guys. This face. This is why this podcast doesn't work.
No, yeah.
Because I have these faces.
making faces on a pod. Hashtag making faces on a podcast. Dylan is the king of nodding.
Yep. Nodding on a podcast.
Okay, Mercutio. This is one of the times, and I feel like Brother Cecil dropped this knowledge bomb on us in high school that Mercutio's in love with Romeo.
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank you, because our teacher, Miss Clavin, okay,
Yeah.
after this movie premiered, she literally was like, okay, I know a lot of you saw Romeo and Juliet. Let's discuss this,
Yeah.
And we told her how we felt, like this, how we're doing right now,
Yeah.
exchanging notes. And she said, well, Mercutio's in love with Romeo. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
like
The
mind
glass shattered in
blown.
your brain.
I was just like, I just thought he dressed in drag for the, for the party, and he's dramatic,
Yeah.
But I also researched on the internet, and I don't find anything that says Shakespeare, like that's what Shakespeare was doing.
Right.
So, but I'm like, clearly. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe just high school teachers in the 90s were just like, hey, we've got this crazy idea.
Give it to the other teachers.
Yeah.
Spread it.
The way that Harold Perrineau is playing it in this movie, the way that it's shot, when the nurse comes to get him and she's taking him away and he just does not take his eyes off Romeo. When he goes back to the party after they leave and Romeo jumps out of the car and goes back to the party and he's like screaming
The look
at
that he
him.
gives Romeo
He's
when he
just like,
leaves him.
Fuck you anyway. All that stuff tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's just these filmmakers are just like, this is where
They're
we're
really
going with
stressing
this.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we walked out of, again, going back to West Side Story, when we walked out of West Side Story this time, I told Scott, do you think this actor was playing it like he thought, Riff was in love with Tony? And
Yeah.
we were
Yes.
both like, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he was.
Yeah. So maybe they don't know they're in love. Like they just have these strong feelings for them, or I don't know.
I don't know. And I feel like with Riff and West Side Story, yeah, I think it's a thing where he's not like, let's run away together. But I think it's these
almost
kind
like
of-
that possessive friendship,
it's definitely-
right?
He doesn't want to have to share Romeo with anyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Eso. Yeah, that's what I want to
Yeah.
get to.
Yeah. I think in this one, Mercutio definitely has
Obviously, yeah.
has romantic intentions. But yeah, it is definitely that kind of.
And it also helps that he does probably drag on the side.
But so
this movie.
So let me ask you guys, being the podcast movies that made us gay,
Yes.
what was it for you guys when you guys see Mercutio come out in drag for this costume party?
Well, especially when I was a kid and seeing this type of drag, which is, this is pretty much club drag. Of like New York club scene drag. And I don't think I'd ever seen anything like that.
Right.
As a kid
Well,
watching it.
the other thing, like for me, it's like, right now, in 2022, we are living in a post RuPaul's Drag Race kind of a world.
Drag is now mainstream.
Drag is mainstream, but it's also very specific. At that time, we had Maury Povich with like women in bikinis asking the audience, is this a man or a woman?
Right. You're
That's a
you're
man,
very
Maury.
right.
That's a man, Maury. Or we had RuPaul.
Yeah.
Or we had like Benny Hill. We didn't have a lot of like, what is drag? What is going to a club? All that stuff.
You would have had to have really been in the scene in places like New York.
Yes. And then he comes out and goatee, makeup just kind of smeared on.
Yeah, not like fabulous makeup like drag queens
He's
today.
not passing as a woman,
Yeah.
And so to me, it was never like, oh, he's a drag queen. To me, it was like, he's wearing a lady outfit for the costume party.
Which people
do.
Which men do, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And I never was like, oh, and I know he performs a song later on, but it's after they all take ecstasy.
Right.
Yeah. So is he really doing that at the party? Probably not. Maybe,
But that's how it looks,
That's
right?
how it comes across to Romeo and the guys.
Okay, so we get introduced to amazing, fabulous Mercutio. I think
Yes.
he's such a great him and Tybalt, like honestly.
so good.
They're
Like
so
I think
good.
I'm more obsessed with them than Romeo and Juliet, to be honest. But anyway, so they take the drugs.
Yeah.
They go to the party, and I read that that the designer, what's her name,
Catherine Martin.
and Kim
Oh,
Barrett,
yeah.
Kim Barrett, they dressed everybody as who they really were.
Right.
Like that's everybody's characters they're dressed as. So Tybalt being the devil, Juliet's dad being Caesar,
Yeah.
her
I think
mom
that-
being Cleopatra.
I've always thought Juliet's dad being more Dionysus, but
Or Bacchus.
It's
but
also-
the same
it's also
thing, just
Caesar,
like
but same thing.
Drunken. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
in that, oh my God, him being, Leonardo DiCaprio, Romeo being high. I love the sounds that we're hearing too,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Juliet's dad singing opera, which
Yeah.
this actor really does. I didn't know he
Oh,
sings.
okay.
Yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah.
Paul Sorvino does opera.
Okay, I buy
And
that.
so-
I often wondered. I was like, is that him singing? I wonder if they got
Yeah,
a guy,
so I thought that was really
this
cool.
would have been such a fun scene to be a party extra in
Oh,
if you were on
yeah.
set that day.
Well, we were talking about too, like just the idea that he's going to be Caesar or he's going to be Bacchus or whatever. So let's put him in an olive wreath and a toga. Mm-hmm. But his toga's purple sequins.
Right.
Like, come on. Like, it's just
Yeah.
just that much more elevated.
Oh, yeah.
It's that much more like cool.
And I read that I guess everybody else at the party is dressed up as Shakespearean characters from like Midsummer Night's Dream and things like that.
And also, I mean, we can't forget about the famous Shakespeare astronaut, played by Paul Rudd.
That's the only part I was gonna say. That's the only one where I'm like, where the
Paul Rudd in this movie, just such a doormat, and it's adorable. Paul Rudd, it's adorable. 96 Paul Rudd had just made Clueless.
You guys, I just put my face in my hands because I'm just like, oh my god. Okay, so I have this question for you. Okay, obviously we're seeing Paul Rudd through the eyes of Juliet. Mm-hmm. Like this is why to her this guy looks like a goon.
He's a
kind of a dork.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we're adults, looking back,
It's Paul Rudd.
I mean, you're
and he's
gonna.
rich.
If
That's
I'm
what I'm saying. I'm like-
Juliet, I'm just gonna be weighing my options here.
yes,
Yeah.
like you're a teenager. Yes, you let your hormones.
Yeah.
But now I'm just like, girl, go with Paul Rudd.
That's what's kind
he's
of-
financially stable.
Yeah.
like he
the
is
nurse
handsome.
tells him later on, she's like, just go marry Paris. It's going to be a good match.
I mean, it's clever
You'll be
casting
happier
because
like,
it's
you
like
had your sex with him. Like,
It's
go get your
almost-
money with this man.
it's almost as if Baz just had a crystal. It's like Baz has his crystal ball that he's looking into the future of the man that Paul Rudd would become in Hollywood.
So the same picture of Paul Rudd in 1996.
Exactly, because he hasn't aged a day.
no, that picture of him on the cover of Time.
That it
Timely.
kind of like adds some odd subtext to it now that you kind of are doubting Juliet now of just like, well, you could just marry Paul Rudd.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Rudd, man, in the 90s, what a wild time of his career. Did The Curse of Michael Myers, Clueless, and then Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. And I remember seeing him in Romeo and Juliet and being like, oh no, because
he's so corny,
Yes.
like dancing.
oh my
and,
God,
like,
when he's
the
dancing and his
yeah.
little hands in the air.
The look that he gives Juliet when there's the fireworks.
yeah.
And
Oh
like
my
the
God.
balloons
Just
falling.
like-
He's like, ah.
Oh yeah, it's the balloons that he just looks back at her.
Like, sorry,
Yeah.
for saying it in Spanish, cara de pendejo. He's just like, damn.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so Romeo is flipping out, you know, because
Yeah.
he's on drugs, and then he's in the bathroom, and then we get that shot of him with his face in the water like
Yeah.
Claire Danes,
Yeah.
right? And so he's like, we've all had that moment. I'm way too fucked up right now. I need like water or fresh air
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
this is overstimulation.
Yeah.
And then we cut to
I mean,
The
it was
aquarium.
in every single television spot and TV ad for this movie.
Yeah.
Was the meeting behind the aquarium walls.
I mean, but it's so romantic. I mean, and so let me tell you guys right now, as a teenage girl at the time, with my love life ahead of me, you know, like now I look back at that and I'm like, girl,
Yeah.
you in trouble. I'm like, you in trouble.
you in
Like,
danger.
you marry for money, do not marry for love, you know? But as a teenage girl, I'm looking at that and I'm just like, yes, this is how love
Yeah.
should be. You know, I'm the target audience. And, you know, I read that actually Romeo and Juliet is supposed to be a satire. Like, it's supposed to be making fun of love.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how stupid
Yeah.
can you be?
Yeah.
That you're going to take your life over, you know,
Yeah.
somebody you met a couple of days ago, you know? But that fish tank scene still holds up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. They have to show us that love at first sight
Yeah.
is real. It's
Exists.
achievable.
And
helps
literally
it-
with her little eyeball.
Yep.
Yeah.
Helps that it's set to Desiree
Through
too.
the like coral. Yeah, that Desiree song.
Desiree. Okay, it's DES apostrophe REE.
Desiree.
Desiree. Okay, get it right. You know?
I'll get it twisted.
Yeah.
She's got that little like hair apostrophe like right at her forehead.
Like looking a little Billie Holiday.
yeah, definitely. She's got the big like
Yeah, with a big flower.
yeah, like a big orchid or whatever in her hair.
Yeah.
A little Billie Holiday and Josephine Baker.
Yes, you're right.
Love
Absolutely.
Child. Yep.
Absolutely. So that song was written for this movie, and
Okay.
it's the theme. Kissing You is the theme for the movie.
Yes.
Which, if
It's-
we think of Franco Zeffirelli's, how he had that song.
Yeah, that Romeo and Juliet song in Zeffirelli, that is like iconic.
overplayed.
Yeah.
I-
Although, yeah,
so-
you're right. It
But
is.
yes, iconic.
I remember that they mentioned on the commentary for the Moulin Rouge that Come What May was
Yeah.
written for Romeo and Juliet
Oh, wow.
originally. So it was meant to be in the movie somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I
That's
do kind
why-
of wonder if it was like, maybe if they wouldn't have gotten the Desiree song, would it be Come What May? I don't know.
Well, that's why Come What May was not eligible to be nominated for an Oscar.
Oh, 'cause
that
it wasn't
year
originally
because it
written.
wasn't an
It was
original
originally
song.
written for...
They thought that they could just not say anything. and
Yeah.
submit it, but they're like, what if somebody does their research and figures it out? Then,
Yeah.
then
He
we're going
thinks
to have
that
to pull it in disgrace.
Enough
So they did
people
the
would
right
have known.
thing.
Yeah.
But they use it so well, and it's like it's as iconic as the Terminator theme song.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dun, dun.
But wait, you guys, we totally missed really fast. Romeo being introduced to Radiohead's talk show.
Oh my God.
Okay, so
I love that song.
I know. I'm rewinding
So
for a
cool.
minute, and
Okay.
That's
Polo's
okay.
losing
We can-
his shit in
we
the
can
wings
do
because
it.
he's like,
We can
"Why
do
didn't we
it.
talk about this?"
So, okay. So a lot of movies lately have been very dependent on these quote unquote needle drops, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where there's just pop song after pop song after pop song.
Cruella.
What Cruella.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
If you watch the Cruella on Disney, it is like non-stop pop songs.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them work.
They're used to
work
good
fairly
effect.
Well, they're used to good effect. But the thing about Baz Luhrmann movies is that he I don't know.
They're really thought out.
Sometimes he dissects them and rearranges them.
he
and
uses them like a score.
he uses
Yeah.
them like score.
Yeah.
So it's not so jarring. You're not just like, and here's another pop song.
Yeah.
They're just so well integrated into
But
the
he
movies.
really does what I wish I would do. Like if I was in film, if I was a director, I'd just be plugging in all my favorite music.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd be like, and then I'm going to play this favorite song
Yeah,
of mine,
totally.
like figure it out. And I
Yeah.
love that he utilizes that.
and they're there for a purpose too.
So Leonardo being introduced by the ocean,
Yeah.
again the water, with talk show host by Radiohead,
And
you know,
writing in his journal.
and I'm
writing
in
in his
high
journal.
school, and Radiohead is my favorite band then and now.
Yeah.
And this introduction, I am losing my shit in the theater.
Levitating.
It's
on
all
your
about
seat.
and it's all
Dude.
about it's all about the Leo hair at the
Like
time too.
I'm freaking 17, so I don't know if I've had an orgasm yet, but probably that was the closest thing to it at
ovaries
that
are
moment.
exploding.
I was just like, yes, on so
I mean,
many levels.
It was Leo mania.
It was the spark of Leomania, you know, because Basketball Diary, the movies before this were kind of edgier, he
Grittier.
wasn't- yeah, grittier. He wasn't playing.
Gilbert Grape is just totally its own thing.
and he was so much younger in that.
Exactly,
And he was,
yeah.
you know. So this was the one that was for the girls, for the kids, and it was
That
just shot
first shot of
for the ladies
Yeah.
and
My
the
loins.
little
Yeah,
for the ladies
little
and
gay
the
boys.
little gay boys like me.
Got the vapors.
Yeah, the
Just
vapors. I
like-
needed a mint julep.
That blonde
Mint
hair
julep
on
on my porch.
that blonde hair on Leo, just
Yeah.
how it just sort of gets in his eyes.
There's
90s.
shots of him at Sycamore Grove right before they go, you know, when Mercutio first gets introduced, and he's sitting there and he's like, I don't want to go. Like, Rosaline's being a bitch, like, whatever. And there's shots of him where the camera just looks at him. And I don't know if he's like, I don't think they have eye makeup on him. I think
it's
maybe he
also
has,
how
like,
they light
some
it, too.
eyeliner or just the way it's lit. I'm just like,
It's the lighting. Yeah.
he just looks like a pretty lady.
So pretty. Yeah.
Actually,
He looks like Cara Delevingne in those
I thought-
shots. I'm like, did you
I
think
told,
that?
I told Polo she looks like Layla,
Yeah.
which is
Well, yes.
one of our very good friends' daughter,
And
right? I was
Layla
like,
looks like a little Cara
Cara
Delevingne
Delevingne,
too.
yeah. So when
Yeah.
I was like, I told Polo, is it me or does Leonardo DiCaprio look like Layla?
Well,
you know, so there
and
it
I
is.
went to Cara Delevingne, so yes.
Yes. So the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
In something in those shots with that light, they're in the moonlight and all that. Oh man, watch them again. You're welcome.
So hot. About movies that made us gay.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, the Masquerade Ball is really well done. It's super memorable. The costumes, the music, all of this stuff. And then I just love John Leguizamo is not a big dude. You know,
It's probably a little pint-sized man.
He's probably 5'8", 5'9", you know, and we were talking about him probably having a 27-inch waist in this movie.
Yes.
And he is just like a little, like, I
Chihuahua.
don't know, like a little... He's just like, God damn it, he showed his face.
Like Romeo's here, I'm gonna lose my shit. You know? And what's going on with the dad Capulet?
Oh, man.
Well, he's not having it because
Love that.
because Tybalt is effing his wife.
What? Yeah.
So
Like,
like there's
dude.
that undertone there. So he's
Yeah.
just like, I'm not gonna deal with your shit.
No, this is my party.
Yeah. You're
Get
not
your
gonna
sh-
tell me what
yeah,
to do.
Get your shit together.
Yeah.
Leave it alone. And just like puts
Yeah.
the beat down on
Yeah, dude. Like he's a portate bien. Like he's all take care of your ass later.
And Paul Sorvino is probably one of those dudes. You don't want to get backhanded slapped by him.
No.
He will fuck you up, dude. I'm afraid of him.
Yeah, dude, shit. So,
And I think I have a Theo who looks like
Exactly.
to top it off. I have an uncle
Yeah, I
that
think
looks like
we all
him.
do.
And it's one of those things. Paul Sorvino, not Hispanic, but I think it works.
But he has that mob
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
Mob
that's
boss.
the mob boss, because he was in Goodfellas.
Goodfellas,
yeah.
yeah.
So he has that mob presence,
Yeah.
which both dads do.
I mean,
both dads have
he's
them.
the
on.
father.
totally.
He's the father of Romy White.
Oh my god,
They have the same
We
nose.
are gonna. She's all. We are gonna blow them away.
Can't believe how cute we look.
This is definitely the cutest we've ever looked.
I mean, it's too bad that the Elizabeth Holmes story couldn't have existed in the 90s in 98, because like a 98 Mira Sorvino would have been perfect.
Are you familiar with this HBO like documentary about this crazy woman?
Elizabeth
my hand now.
talk after the
Holmes
show, yeah.
sounds exactly like Romy White.
Oh, okay.
She faked like she invented this machine to like
Oh,
do the blood test.
yes, we
Yeah.
did. We watched the documentary. The one who would dress up like Steve Jobs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she talks like Romy White.
talks
Did you
like
not
Romy
notice that?
Right. Okay, this is what I was afraid of coming on this podcast, that I was just going to spend my time laughing and pointing at
So we
you.
should probably talk a little bit about the balcony scene.
Yes.
I like
In the
that
pool.
it looks very like it's shot in the courtyard of Melrose Place.
Yeah. But, okay, again, that pool is very true to the designs in Mexico City.
Having a
Yes.
courtyard.
Yep, having a courtyard.
Yeah. It's like, that's true. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. I love all the stuff with there's like security guard, just showing like how like, you know, cloistered or whatever she is, that like there's cameras and there's people like actively live watching the cameras
At all times.
She knows of what area of the pool to put
Yeah,
Romeo.
sure. She
when
knows how
he's
we
not on
need to go in
camera.
this little
Yep.
alcove. Like, yeah.
And I love that this balcony scene transitions into a pool scene.
Yeah.
Again, with the water.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I just thought it was so, and again, teenage girl, this makeout session in the pool. I'm just like, yes, this is what love is going
And
to
it's
be
also
like.
it's one of those things that this movie's been around for most of my life, and kind of what I associate with Romeo and Juliet, that I do kind of forget that, oh yeah, this scene is not staged in a pool originally.
Yeah.
But just now, whenever I think of the balcony
Yeah.
scene,
You think of
I
them.
immediately think of them falling in this pool.
Yes, yes. And just the delivery of those lines, like,
Yes. This is one of the scenes where the dialogue between the two of them just comes across like
Like they're having a
normal
conversation.
I mean, probably the hardest scenes to read actors for is
Yeah.
to do this scene, since it's so iconic. I mean, these are such famous lines,
Yeah.
and you don't want to sound like you're in a high school play doing it.
Well, let me also drop this knowledge bomb for our listeners
do
out
it.
there. When she says, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Wherefore is a word. And it does not mean where, as in, where are you, Romeo? Where art thou, Romeo? It's why are you Romeo? Why are you Montague?
yes.
And Brother Cecil taught us that. He's and everybody always, you know, because it's become part of not just pop culture, but just like culturally, the English language, people know, oh, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? She's not looking for him. She's asking, why are you Romeo? And that leads into what's in a name, a rose by any other name.
Or I love how she says, or any other part
Or any
belonging
other
to a
part belonging
man.
to a man.
And we're like,
Yeah.
like the way she delivers it, it's like, oh, that is funny. Like I wouldn't have ever thought of that, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why they dressed her up like an angel, because of that line, "Oh, speak again, bright angel." That's why they dressed her up like the angel,
Yeah.
because he refers to her as an angel.
angel.
And I found out
Love it.
that the designer actually sewed parts of the script, like the dialogue,
Oh,
into
okay.
her dress, like Phantom Thread.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, and it was something that nobody saw, but she did
Yeah.
it in white stitching, you know, just for them. Isn't that
that's
so cool?
I love it.
I love
Yeah,
that. That
yeah.
sounds exactly like what these.
Yeah, I think it's so intentional.
Yeah,
Everything is so
absolutely.
intentional. So yes, kissing scene.
But then
balcony scene.
that's when you also kind of get this realization that, like, shit, man, this was written in a different time, because this whole conversation is just like, oh, you're so hot, let's kiss. Oh, we're both so hot. You want to get married tomorrow?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, you know, the part where she's just like, you know, what are your intentions?
Yeah.
Basically, and she's like, that of marriage.
You're gonna come and marry me
And
tomorrow?
he doesn't flinch.
And he's like, well, yeah.
Because, you know, I mean,
If we want to keep this going, that's what we gotta do.
nowadays, like, it's like, we've been dating for 6 months. Do you want to be my boyfriend?
exactly.
Girl, I'm not ready
don't
for that
know.
shit. Like, what gave you that
I
idea?
guess putting yourselves in the position of these characters, in their shoes.
Yeah.
Their families hate each other so much, you almost have to tie that knot right away and just be like, so we already made this work. So
I guess that's true.
I guess
If
that
they
we're
are
Catholic,
to-
so you just have to fucking deal with
If
it.
we are to continue this, we do have to get married.
And
but
here's
also,
the thing, too. Like, you're not going to have sex until you get married.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and we want to hurry up and have sex.
Yes.
So, like yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
And when Lady Capulet is talking to Juliet about Paris, and she's like, "Would you want to marry him?" And Juliet's like, "I haven't even thought about marriage. Like, that's not where my head is at." And she's like, "Well, I had you younger than you are now. So figure it out." She says that. That's a line.
which
in
makes
there.
Lady Capulet like what, 27?
Yeah, that's because Juliet's 14.
Yeah.
So,
also
yeah.
written at a very different time.
Well, yeah, that's the
when
thing.
you
is
got
written at the
married
time.
at like, I mean, you had to be married by the time you were like 16 years old.
I mean, the nurse
Yep.
literally says that she actually nursed Juliet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like,
That's legit.
that's legit.
That
yeah,
shit really happened.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it's in there saying that like there's lines telling Juliet like girls of your age make brides, and I was younger than you are now when I married your father and had you. So start thinking about getting married. And she was just kept putting her off and saying like. There's some interesting lines, in that scene. I do think that the actress who's Lady Capulet's playing, she's playing it very funny. She's doing a very Blanche Dubois kind of like,
and also
delivery.
towards kind of the last few acts of the movie, I feel like she really like ramps up the southern accent.
Southern accent.
Oh, and well, because she is upset, that woman.
She's mourning.
Yeah.
And she's a pill-popping alcoholic.
Yeah.
Can we just acknowledge that, too? She is a pill-popping
Yeah.
alcoholic who is miserable because she's been married to this man since she was 13.
Yes, and she is making no like effort to hide how tore up she is about
Yeah.
Tybalt being dead.
Yeah.
Throwing herself on.
Yeah, dude. She's like, I can't even do it, but she's like,
Yeah.
the way she loses her shit on
Yeah.
Okay, we know that's a sore subject to come up. But okay, so now they've made plans, right? She's just like, we're going to get married.
Yeah.
It's the next day we
He's
hear
like,
the wannadies, right?
Yeah.
It's only you when he's driving over to the priest and we get introduced to the priest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Friar Lawrence.
Who's like a curandero. Like he has
my
his little
goodness,
lab
yeah.
of drugs. Like,
Also,
Is he making the potion for her at the end? Not for her, but I mean, he's making the potion that he gives to her later on.
I think he has potions.
Stuff.
And I
He's
think,
just making-
yeah, dude.
also, I mean, we've gotten the apothecary set up that he just sort of works out of the pool hall, which I think is so cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. that was early
gross-
on. Yeah.
That gross guy at the pool hall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just like a loogie.
Yeah.
Like that's just like I just want to clear my throat.
Yeah. He looks like when dogs would poo on the ground and you wouldn't pick it up and it would turn white.
I told you, Pete. Don't be making me laugh like this. Okay, yeah. So Romeo comes and he's just like, I want to marry Juliet, and the priest sees it as an opportunity to bring these families together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the coolest part is when doves cry.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like after this scene, I really understood why doves cry.
I mean, now
And it's
you
set
know
to
how
like
it feels.
it's set to like a children's choir too.
I mean,
that it almost takes you like a second to like notice it, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh shit. It's the Prince song. I forgot
I'm
about
just here to say that little boy who is singing the lead, I don't know if it's actually him or not, but he looks so bored. He's like rolling his eyes. He's like,
you know, making me be all talented and shit.
I'm like, geez, are we putting you out, kid? Don't want to be in this
fine.
movie? Watch next time. He's bored.
You're right. But I like those little choir boys in the background doing
Yes.
the hand gestures, and you know somebody's behind the
Yes.
camera being like, and then you lift
And
your
then you
hands
do
like
this.
this,
Yeah.
and then you bring them down like this. It's like kids at a Christmas concert.
Well, and also if this is shot in Mexico, maybe these kids are like local kids.
Yeah,
you know, if they're just
you're right.
they're just
Yeah.
extras.
Yeah.
They don't have lines or anything, so they probably just got kids. You know,
Yeah,
so
pretty awesome.
yeah. But yeah, and this is when we do see Friar Lawrence in what later becomes Romeo's kind of like iconic blue Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah,
He's wearing it for the first time. You see that giant back tattoo that he's got.
so good. Which looks like a Celtic cross.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like Celtic knots
Yeah.
in there. Yeah, very interesting.
So then this is what leads to them. They're going to get married, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that look too. You see, if you look at all their, Romeo and Juliet's costumes, they're the only kind of like normal costumes. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
you believe that she was just like, well, I'm going to get married in 2 hours. I'm going
Yeah,
to throw on
gotta
this
find a
white
dress.
dress that I have in my closet.
I mean, she probably wears that dress to church.
Yeah.
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 Hubby
And
takes communion in that dress.
and they were saying
Yeah.
that his suit was the only one. That's a Prada suit that Prada gave them. Everything
Okay.
else they made, but that
Okay.
one was. And it's interesting. I don't know.
Iconic.
Is it me? But does it look like the shoulder pads are big? Like he looks like he's playing dress up. In
Like
a
it's
sense.
not his
Like,
suit.
I mean,
Yeah.
like he borrowed it
Yeah.
from someone.
Yeah. And I love that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like these two kids trying to do this very adult thing.
Yes, yeah. He probably wouldn't have his own like full like nice suit. Like his clothes that he wears are probably a little dusty, a little little worn out. So he's
That
like,
would
I'm
be
gonna
a
get
good-
nice one.
that would-
Maybe it's Benvolio's because he's bigger.
Sure.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's his cousin, and he's taller. So maybe it was like
Let's
it's
make
his.
that movie.
I kind of underestimate the actor who plays Benvolio. He's
Yes.
very handsome. And Pete and I always comment that like he has this great body, but he's also kind of a little thick.
Like a little pudgy.
Yeah.
He's not my type,
Yeah,
face-wise,
yeah.
but his spirit.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You really just feel that he's not out. He's not a loaded gun.
No, yeah.
He's not like Tybalt.
Yeah, he's the
You
one
know?
that's kind of like, you guys, we got to get the hell out of here.
He's not the
Yeah.
hothead.
Yeah.
He's
He's
sort
not.
of the voice
Yeah.
of reason.
When
This
he
is-
says, there's one scene when he's like, Dash me, Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
There's one scene where he says something about like, it's hot, like
Yeah.
Capulets are out, like
Yeah.
let's just go.
Right before the party, he's all this. When you talk about blows us away, I'm just like, yes, I like this. That's
Yeah.
me. That's
Yeah.
me in the friendship. I'm like,
Will
you guys,
shut up. We gotta leave.
let's go.
we also have yet to talk about the little twink that follows them, Jesse
Jesse.
Bradford. So cute in this movie.
Yeah. Balthazar.
Yes, Balthazar.
Balthazar.
Yes,
There we
yeah.
go.
He's Romeo's page.
Who's anybody's in West Side Story.
Yes, that's the same. Yeah, character, the
I
analog. yeah,
never even thought of that. I
yeah,
love that.
the analogy.
I love like the analogies with West Side Story.
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah.
They always take me by surprise whenever I
Yeah,
like,
because
put two
same
and two
things.
together.
Like he's pulling Romeo away when things are,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like
true,
when the
yeah.
fuzz is coming.
Yeah.
Like he's the one pulling Romeo away. He's the one hiding him.
Getting him
Like
in the car
he
and
just
hi-
wants to
yeah.
be a part of the
Yeah,
gang
yeah.
and is doing anything to.
Yeah, it's so interesting because Jesse Metcalf is my age, or not
Jesse
Metcalf,
Bradford.
Bradford
one thing.
is my age, and like he looks so little in this movie. He looks like a little boy, and I was like, well, he's probably about 16, 17. Like I look like a little kid. When
You
I
were
was
little.
16,
Yeah.
17.
We were little kids,
Yeah.
you know? But, you know, okay, so they get married and now they're going to go to we see, is it the Montague boys at the beach first? And yes.
the Montagues.
And then the Capulets show up, right? And they're like, it's a hot day.
Yeah.
But one thing we haven't talked about is the iconic, which shows up here. You see it a lot. Is the L'Amour sign.
Yes.
Right? Okay,
The
that-
Coca-Cola.
It sort of looks like the Coke.
Yeah, the Coca-Cola
Also
logo.
very Moulin Rouge too.
Well, it's in everyone.
It's in all three of the movies.
It's
yeah.
in, Strictly Ballroom. But I found out, I don't know if you guys read this, but when Baz Luhrmann and his wife got married, they got married on a stage and they had the L'Amour in the background
Oh, okay.
of their wedding. So that's kind of like their signature as
All right.
a couple,
okay.
right?
That's really cool.
But what I think is really cool is in Mexico, Coca-Cola sponsors a lot of businesses.
okay.
So if you go into like a local family-owned restaurant, all their tables and chairs will have Coca-Cola
Oh, wow.
emblems all over. I mean, Coca-Cola is everywhere
Yeah.
because they are sponsoring all these businesses, right? It's an empire.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really cool that in this movie, if you pay attention, you see it everywhere, like in
Yeah.
the bars, like they're sponsoring those businesses too.
Okay.
So I was like, this is very real. This is
Yeah.
really consistent with the culture.
Yeah. Wow.
I thought that was really cool.
That is crazy.
I love all of the beach scenes too. I mean, I don't know a lot about Mexico, but I went to school in Mexico for a summer in rural Mexico. And there's just something about the beach scenes that just feel like this is Mexico. This is like rural Mexico.
Well, okay. So I will say I've never been to a beach like that in Mexico. All the
Yeah.
beaches that I've been to in Mexico, freaking beautiful.
Yeah.
If anything, when I saw that, I mean, maybe it's Miami Beach because I didn't know they did film some of it in
Right.
Miami
Yeah.
Beach.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was more like Venice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did have a
Venice
a little
Beach.
Venice.
It's like
feel to it.
gritty and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
And some kind of like broken down stuff.
And I'm just sort of thinking of small towns in Mexico that aren't the bigger cities.
yeah, possibly. Yeah.
That I think that's why I like all of these scenes in the movie.
Yeah.
So this is when we get the big
Yes.
fight with
Big showdown.
the big showdown
Yeah.
with
The showdown is intense.
Tybalt and Mercutio and Romeo. But all that stuff in there, there was a hurricane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was real.
And it's
you
in the
can
movie.
see.
Yeah.
Like those are not effects at all. When the clouds change to thunder, like
Yeah.
That's not an effect. That shit really happened.
But and like there's shots of Leo standing there in that baggy suit and the wind pushing him, and he's standing straight, and the wind is just pushing his whole suit, and it's just like it's crazy, and you're like, that's real.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what I love in this scene when Tybalt and Mercutio are first fighting before Romeo shows up is that when he says like, "Are you consortous with Romeo?" You know, implying, "Are you sleeping with Romeo?" And that's what sets Mercutio off.
Yeah.
You know, he says, "Are you consortous with Romeo?" And then that's when he's like,
"What did you say?"
Yeah, because he's like, "Who told you?" No, but yeah, like that really strikes a chord in in him, and that's where you see him really get defensive and start putting out his dukes.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. And this is where we get all that stuff with this very like ritualistic thing of, their lieutenants kind of taking out their weapons and emptying, all of their bullets and everything to make it a little bit more of this kind of like fair, ritualistic kind of a duel. But Romeo's like, nope, I'm not going to do it. You're my family now. Like, I don't hate you. And, let's try and work it out. But Tybalt's not hearing any of it.
Yeah, well, no, he wants Romeo.
Yeah.
I want Romeo.
Thou art a villain. I love the way he says.
I love his deliveries, by the way. So, okay, big fight scene. Mercutio's death.
Get stabbed in the stomach with that glass.
But that line, a plague on both your houses. Like, I just want to walk around and tell people that. Like, when they piss me off. Like, a plague on both your houses.
Yeah.
Mine and whose? I don't know, but both of yours.
Both of them.
Both of them. Whatever two you have.
But I remember Brother Cecil telling us, like, Mercutio is very kind of theatrical. And at first he says, like, oh, it's just a scratch. It's just a scratch. But then he says, look for me tomorrow and you'll find me a grave man.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a play on words, like I'll be dead, like I'll be in the grave, and I forgot what like a grave man like meant something else different then, but it was definitely more of like this pun, and he says like, you've made worms meat of me, and like all this.
That line is so good too. You've made worms meat. I'm like, I want to say that. I mean, but nobody's heard me that bad.
Yeah.
But another thing that I read is that the designer put a lot of sheer fabrics on Mercutio, like his shirts are sheer because he was the most vulnerable and transparent in his character, like the most emotional. And so that's what she was trying to show in that. And I thought that was really cool because it's true. I think he's the most raw from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Like in his feelings, he's not masking anything except for the fact that he's in love with Romeo.
Yeah.
Except the one big thing.
The biggest thing. Yeah.
That's the veil.
I mean, how can you not be in love with
I mean
that angel face?
I'm telling you. Okay, so and I think it's so cool the way they do the car scene that flips over.
Wild.
And
that
kind
car
of
chase.
And this whole standoff with them. I mean, it's the Angel of Independence in Mexico.
Well,
right? But I mean, is it?
It's a Jesus statue.
It's a Jesus statue, but
isn't it sort of inspired by
like a fake Jesus statue?
So here's the thing: it's supposed to be inspired by the Rio de Janeiro Jesus.
Okay, sure.
But that Jesus was actually a 2-foot Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's the one that they used between the two buildings at the very beginning. That looks gigantic. I'm like, way to go, optical illusion.
Yeah. But I feel like the circular, I think they shot it on the Angel of Independence.
Oh, okay.
But what they're telling us is that really there's a statue of Jesus that's like 30 feet tall, but it's, that's all just like
production design. If it's not shot there, because it's inspired by
there's a white chart and there's those two buildings, and I think the Angel of Independence, when we stayed there, it's like there's high rises behind it. So I was like, I feel like that's what, like they fixed it in post or whatever.
Okay, but what's amazing, this movie was made on $12 million.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
incredible.
for all these visuals and like, even to this day, I look at it, I'm like, that looks legit.
It's very thrifty with its
I
its
think
money.
Too, I think a lot of the special effects are almost kind of supposed to look a little, I don't know, they're not going for realism. They're not trying to make
it's like the same with Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, they're not trying to make Moulin Rouge looks like a pop-up book.
Yeah, you're right.
So those special effects, they're able to maybe mask what they didn't have in money to say, well, it's supposed to look over the top and avant-garde.
What I think is really cool is like this is a moment in the movie where it starts to get visually gritty.
Yes. Yeah.
Because up until this point, color, like fantastical, like big, and this is where it starts getting like an NYPD.
Yeah. Handheld
like
camera.
like a gritty cop drama.
Yeah. Like, I mean, except for when you're in Juliet's room, but other than that, like Romeo going to the priest's, apartment, like it doesn't look. There's so much religious iconography in the priest's, home, but it looks so dark and dingy.
Yeah.
And it's suddenly like shit got real.
Yeah.
They're no longer living in this fantasy that we've been seeing this whole time. Like now it's like, okay, you got married. You see what happens when you get married?
I told you.
Your life goes to shit.
This wouldn't have happened if you stayed with Rosalind.
See what sex does. No. Oh wait, no, they haven't had
Well,
sex
they haven't
yet.
had sex yet. So okay. Father Lawrence cleans him up. He still has this like very dramatic, like bloody teardrop going down his face. Makes his way to Juliet's bedroom and they bone for the first time.
And apparently that was like the first scene they shot.
Yeah, so weird. Especially for these two like one is under the age of 18.
Is this just all Hollywood lore though? Because supposedly the first scene
Claire says that in a press interview.
And I read it in high school too.
And the first scene that Leo shot with Kate was drawing her in Titanic.
Oh, I thought it was the Dex. No, it's not the Dex
drawing
scene.
her.
It's drawing her.
Maybe it just brings them together much more
I think
quickly.
it's a clause in his contract. He's like, anytime that they take their shirt off, that's what we're shooting first.
Yeah.
We know Leo.
Can I say though, when Julia is in her room, this is my favorite costume that she wears, the t-shirt and jeans.
Yeah. They're weird jeans, but it's... Yeah.
Well, they're like a little
cute.
70s,
Yeah, they're a
like
little
bell-bottomy,
hippie-ish, yeah.
soft.
Very like on trend with young people at the time.
And I see that what they were trying to do too was like, she's not flashy. Like none of her stuff is flashy.
Yeah.
She's so disconnected about what's going on, but she just looks like such a teenager when she's lying in bed waiting for Romeo to show up.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really lose her shit on the fact that he killed her cousin.
Yeah.
Like we see in West Side Story is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? When Maria being like, kill her. Like, we don't see that.
Killed
here.
your brother.
A boy like that will kill your brother. We don't hear that. Not this time. But there comes in Leo through the window, and guess what? Cousin who?
It's Leo. It's 96.
We weren't that close.
Leo
He
DiCaprio
was like a
coming through
brother.
bedroom window.
He was my second or third cousin,
I
actually.
mean, but here you are, and here I am, and we're married, so let's consummate.
Let's get these wet clothes on.
I mean, all of the scenes with them underneath the covers.
Oh,
I
so
mean, so
beautiful.
iconic. It's just like when I think of images from this movie, that's the scene that I go to.
Yeah. No, I
them in bed together.
love
So
how
cool.
they shot that. Like being teenagers, being in your little world, being so in love. And can I tell you, when I was telling, Polo when we were watching it, I'm like, I resonated with this so much. Not because it was romantic, but I used to sneak boys in and out of my window
Oh my god!
I mean, who
all
didn't?
the time.
Did you make like?
I've climbed in
Did
my
you make
shirt
like
windows.
bed forts with them underneath the sheets?
No, I mean, I wish that that's what was happening. Like that I had a guy as hot as Leonardo DiCaprio making bed forts with me. But that is very real. Like her trying to get it together and get him out the window before, the mother or the nanny, because I mean, I didn't have a nanny, but before I got caught by my parents,
Yeah.
that's very real. And so I remember as a teenager looking at this and I'm just like, I relate.
Been there.
This is so real. I'll be there tomorrow night. Just watch. It's very real. I mean, you guys, okay, let's go back to this truth. I'm born from, I'm a Mexican family. My parents are super old school. My mom got married at 17. My parents have been married for 60 years now. Okay. Up until I got married, I was sneaking my then boyfriend into my room. My parents, to my mom, the worst thing I could have done is had premarital sex.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't know that there was worse things out there. Like, I could be doing, like, drugs. She was just like, just do not give it away. That was my mom's, like, so as far as we're concerned, it's like, don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah,
my mom thinks I married as a 34-year-old virgin.
And why not?
We hope that she's not listening.
I mean, Mami, no es cierto. No es cierto.
She's like, what? You robbed a bank? Oh, that's fine.
But did you have sex? So anyway, again, as the target market, that shit was very real for me.
Understood it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, Baz also just kind of probably thought of a cute scene of a teen movie.
Yeah.
At this portion of the movie.
Yeah.
Like sneaking the boyfriend in through the the bedroom window.
It's very reminiscent of the Zeffirelli version as well. I mean, it's almost the same scene.
I kind of wish that we got to see Leo's butt in this movie.
And Leo doesn't have a butt.
Yeah, that's the thing is that Leo probably doesn't have a butt.
Not worth seeing.
Flat.
Yeah. That would be disheartening.
I know.
Right. But here comes in Lady Capulet to deliver the news.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
And
This
Claire
is
Danes,
crazy.
Juliet loses her shit. Like straight off, does not even try to pretend like, let's talk about this, Mom.
I mean, this is like her MTV Movie Award Best Actress clip right here.
Not proud you have, but thankful that you have. Proud can I never be of what I ate!
Thank me, no thankings! You're proud now! Get back to your fine joints! Get thirsty legs!
Hear me with patience!
No!
I mean, and then, and here's the thing, the dad is pushing Paris because Dad's pissed off about what's going on with Lady Capulet and Tybalt, right? And he just wants to exert his power back in the house, right?
Yeah.
And that fight between the three of them.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, they're really going for it.
The way he throws her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He manhandling this child,
Right.
but then he's like, if you don't marry him, then get the hell out of here. Like,
I don't know
the
you.
house. And the mom is just like, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
I told you what you needed to do, and walks away. Leaves her that you're just like, oh shit.
And I really do think it's because the dad feels like he's been made a fool of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's just like, in my house, what I say goes, and I don't care what it is I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's just going to go.
Yeah.
Because I said so.
And I'm sure the marriage to Paris is a business deal.
Of course.
Yep. So he's just like, all right, perfect.
And I don't want to be
opportunity.
made a
Let's-
fool.
Yeah, let's
there
do
too,
this. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I promised you to him. And now what? I'm just going to say, just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope.
So
Nope. And so she turns to her nurse, who's
Yeah.
like, okay, who gives it to her a little bit more gently, like, but maybe you should, because this man pays my bills. So let's do what your
also-
daddy
if
said.
you leave, then I'm probably out of a job too.
And it's also it's Paul Rudd.
How do you? But do you mean in a good way? Oh yeah,
No,
you're
but
not
like-
sacrificing.
But she's just
dude.
like, it's Paul Rudd.
Yeah. And how about okay?
a lateral
again,
move.
Okay, well we didn't say Romeo goes into the pool again.
Yes, he does
This,
when
okay.
he leaves. Yeah.
And right after this scene, she's fixing a bath for her.
yeah.
It's just I feel like the water keeps on solidifying the scenes. Does that make sense? Just anchoring them. That's the word I'm looking for. And
Well, also when Tybalt gets shot in the fountain
yes. Oh my God, I hadn't thought about
and
that.
he falls back dramatically into the water.
Yeah, you're right. So, but I love that scene, Juliet sitting and being like, yeah, you're right. I'm going to do what you're saying.
Yeah,
And that faraway look in her eyes, and, she's exhausted from crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she goes to the priest dressed like a schoolgirl.
Dressed like Madeline.
Madeline with
Paris.
Madeline yielding like a gun.
A gat. Yeah. So I'm wondering kind of briefly, I know this is classic material, all of that, but were they to adapt this again, or were they to adapt this now in this style, could they get away with quote unquote teenagers running around in the street just pulling guns on everybody?
I think so. I think. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, think of Euphoria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because in the first scene in the gas station, they're running through the streets, just shooting blindly, and it's is that too much? Is that too real? Are people going to be like, "Ugh, don't be shooting"?
Here's the thing, though. Again, I think that's emulating what was happening. A
the
reflection
time,
of the
true,
drug war
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight up gang violence.
And gangs in LA in the 90s were rough as hell. So it's
Yeah.
it's not.
So
like
I
it
do
was
think
something
it's
that-
prevalent.
Yeah, it's true.
prevalent.
Yeah.
And then speaking of Euphoria, okay, have you seen Euphoria?
We have
watched
not
it
seen
yet.
Euphoria.
I know.
You should.
Yeah, I know.
It's intense, but it's just everything that can happen bad to teenagers is happening, but it's very in such an artistic, awesome way.
Yeah.
And for season 1, Jules, one of the characters, dresses like Juliet to this
okay.
party. It looks so cool,
Is she dressed in the wings?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Like Espie going to prom?
Love it.
She looks slightly better. No. Well, I mean, I look beautiful, but I mean, Jules really does
Yeah.
And that's
capture
not that's not the Zendaya character?
No.
No,
She's
no,
rude.
it's her girlfriend.
Is it the girl from White Lotus?
I don't know. We don't-
No. So, I believe Rue is trans, and so
Okay.
she's Zendaya's girlfriend in this.
What?
Yeah, and so Rue is a great character. You guys are gonna. I know we're going.
Maria sounds nuts.
It is nuts,
Crazy.
But going back to Pete's question, that's my thing. Do we think that we could get away with that? I mean, in Euphoria, there is a teenage drug dealer who runs like almost like a little liquor store. But out of that liquor store, he's running drugs. I mean, there is violence in the show, too. And it's just like, yeah, if you could get away with that. And if it feels real, if it doesn't feel like violence for violence sake.
Yeah.
You know, so like I said, in Euphoria, it's intense, but it's so well done. It's really well done. I think you'll enjoy it. But anyway, I thought it was cool that in Euphoria, there's a nod to...
we were talking about that, too. I was like, is Gen Z even aware of this movie?
Yeah.
And if they watched it, would it just blow their minds?
Oh, it's totally on brand for Gen Z. They would love it.
You know?
Yeah,
also seeing Leo, because I feel like Gen Z knows Leo as Leo today, Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Don't look up. Yeah.
Kids see Winona Ryder and they're like, oh, the mom from Stranger Things?
Yeah.
And you're like,
she's an icon.
that is an...
The face of the 90s.
Yeah.
Which... That's what I was going to ask you guys too. I mean, I don't know. We want to talk about this in wrap up. We're almost there, but like this movie as a 90s icon, because I feel like it's like My So-Called Life.
Yeah.
You have Nirvana.
Yeah.
Like there's certain things that you're like, that's 90s. But yet I look at this movie still and I'm just like, it's still fucking great.
No, it's not dated at all.
And it's 90s,
us, I mean-
but it's not like, oh, well, look at the crazy, like, look what they're wearing. Look at sort
But
of
it's all
like...
supposed to be that way. So
But-
it's not, it's not like Clueless.
But you're saying
where
like
just
it's not inhabiting the fashion of the 90s.
Yeah, it doesn't
yeah.
inhabit the fashion of the 90s. It just exists in this crazy, parallel, heightened universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You watch something like I Know What You Did Last Summer and you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, but I
what
feel
are they
like this
wearing?
movie was such a moment in the 90s,
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
Like, this was such a moment.
It
and
felt like the biggest movie in the world if you were a young person at the time.
Yeah. I mean, for our teacher to be like, okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Teachers are probably like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, this is something that we're teaching anyway. So it's going to be a way for these kids to, like, get into the material. So...
Okay,
Holds
so
their attention with Shakespeare.
and good looking teenagers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about all this miscommunication that leads to the death.
Oh my goodness gracious!
I mean,
it's a lot. I do love that the courier service is called Post Haste.
Yeah, love it.
Okay, but here's my thing. Why didn't he check off, like, no need for signature? Like, you could have just...
Hello, Friar Lawrence. Just
Right.
no signature required.
Yeah, right?
Come on,
Like that-
leave at the door.
Right? I was just like, oh my God, Father.
Idiot.
I was just like, seriously, dude. You know?
Or just give it to freaking the
Balthazar.
page, Balthazar.
Like, he sees him come into the church and he's just like, what? You know, I'm just like, chase after the motherfucker. You know? Like, and again, how gritty and dirty it is when Leo is out in the desert.
When he's banished.
When he lives in like Joshua Tree.
He's been
in his
banished.
trailer.
Banished.
And that's the thing is that like, let's say that everything does work out. And he does end up with Juliet. Is he just taking her out to this trailer to just like
Come
live the
live
rest
with-
of their
this is where we're
lives?
gonna live
This is
now.
where we're gonna live, sweetheart.
And she's like,
This trailer out in
is
the
prayer
desert.
still available?
She's gonna be like, okay, I left my palace.
She's like, I think I left my wings in my house.
I'm gonna
I'll be right
go
back.
Get him. And I'm just gonna. Yeah. You don't have to come with me.
Don't wait for me for dinner. Yeah. Well, I also think that him in the desert in the trailer just, and the FedEx or whatever post haste truck coming out reminds me of Seven.
It does
Yes.
remind me of
Like,
Seven.
what's in the box?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Leonardo DiCaprio's tantrum
Yeah.
is also like, who influenced who? Brad Pitt?
Hey, yeah, true. Yeah.
I mean, it came out after Seven, but it just
Seven
reminded
was
me of that.
95. Mm-hmm.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, 7 was 95.
So it was
first
before.
he says I'm Fortune's fool when he shoots Tybalt, but then when Juliet dies,
I defy you,
I
stars.
defy you, stars.
That I defy you,
Oh, my
stars.
goodness.
You know, I've said it a few
Drama.
times. I've shaken my fist at the sky, and I'm like, I
Drama,
have to go back to work on
jeez.
Monday.
Yeah.
Then I defy you, stars.
Have you forsaken me?
I mean, come on. I've got to pull that drama
Take a
somewhere.
pill.
But okay, how about that? Like, the priest is like, I'm going to give you these drugs,
Oh
and
my
it's going to
God.
be like you're dead, but you're
No.
not. And Juliet's like, all right,
Okay, sounds good.
okay. And how about let's talk about this moment where she's going to bed, and she tells her mom, you know, farewell. God knows when we will see each
Yeah,
other again.
and the
And
mom-
she's
and
all,
I want
Okay,
the
bye.
mom, and I want the mom to just be like, say what?
See you in the morning.
What?
Let's take
What
a
did
moment.
you just say?
I feel like we need to breathe for a moment because, yes, okay, Juliet has gotten the drugs from the priest. Okay, we're going back a little bit.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I'm going to take these tonight. It's going to knock me out. Everybody's going to think I'm dead. you know, and her mom comes in to say goodnight to her. And Juliet says to her, farewell, God knows when we shall see each other again. Mm-hmm. And her mom looks at her and she's like, well, good night.
Well, good night.
Like, I'm just like, okay, if
totally
my kid...
normal, average thing to say when you're going to sleep.
Like, if my kid said something cryptic like that, I'm like, turning the lights back on. And be like, what's going on? Let's
Come
talk
to the
about
bathroom, we're throwing up.
Yes.
Come on. Come with me.
Come on,
We're throwing
Mija.
up.
Here, drinking some charcoal. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Open your mouth. Stick my finger in there.
Like, seriously. I just love how she's like, well, good night. Like, did you miss something, lady?
Yeah.
But also maybe reflective of how far removed, doped out this mom is.
True.
Alcoholic.
She's just like,
I'm depressed.
Who are you again?
My dick just died. You know,
She's a couple of Vicodins in already.
Yeah, dude. She's just like, all right, I'll see you in the morning. You know, I got to get to a bar cart.
She's sleeping with Prince Valium tonight.
Always delivers. Always delivers. So then Romeo doesn't get the letter. Mm-hmm. But I have to say though, this feeling of anxiety is still very real. Mm-hmm. Like the way they do it in this film, I'm just like,
like you almost think that, is everything going to work out?
And we know how it ends.
I know that I've seen this movie a lot, but maybe it'll all work out in the end. I don't know.
Not only that, I know maybe this time there's an alternate ending. But like Shakespeare always tells us at the beginning how this is going to end.
Yeah.
Like no surprises.
The woman on the damn TV told us that it did not end well.
Yes, we know this.
In 2 hours, they're going to die.
I mean, okay. So Leo, I keep on calling him Leo because he is Leo, but Romeo shows up to the church. How cool is the church with all these neon crosses?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, the neon crosses.
So cool.
Get out of here.
I mean, I want to go to that club.
Yeah.
It's so hot right now.
Yeah, like
this
so
has
cool.
everything. Neon crosses.
Yeah, dude, like oh
Beds
my
of
god.
flowers.
Beds of flowers, candles everywhere. I mean, yes.
The fire chief is like on speed dial.
So I remember when they did press for this movie, they would always talk about how they couldn't keep a straight face during this scene.
Romeo and Juliet?
Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio.
So not Romeo and Juliet.
When they were actually filming
Thank you
the
for
scene.
clarifying.
That it's the most important scene of the entire movie, and they cannot get through the scene.
Did they say why?
I remember just them talking about that a lot.
Interesting.
Because it's funny that she's dead.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's a very dramatic scene, but so well done.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like...
Well, they incorporated this gag in this movie that we hadn't seen of he takes the potion and she starts waking up.
Yes.
Yes, we've never seen that before.
That never happened.
He just dies and then she wakes up.
So
and also there's...
Now he knows that, oh shit, she wasn't dead.
They have that moment.
Yeah.
And not only that, when you see her like fingers starting to move, you're like, oh,
stop.
You know, and she opens her eyes but doesn't like...
But
like
he's
she's
looking away and she's
and then
looking...
you're just
yeah.
like-
And you know what? There's something kind of interesting of how they edit the movie, that there's flashes of the scene earlier. So it's almost like Romeo is having this premonition
like fatalistic,
of his tragic end, and he just
Yeah.
can't quite put the pieces together with it. I think that's...
And she sees it earlier too when when he's in the pool. She's like, "It's like I see you at the bottom of a grave."
Yeah.
Like they both had premonitions throughout the whole movie. There's where she even says, you know, and take him and cut him up like the stars. She's talking about his death.
Yeah.
You know, so I think they're like they're alluding to it. Like I'm like, you kids are psychic and you're not even listening to your own advice.
Yeah, but I always thought that was just an extra like punch in the gut when she like opens her eyes and he sees it and he's just like, oh, shit.
And I'm gonna say
what
this,
did I do?
And you could totally cut this out because it's like offset. But it reminded me of Lady Hawk. That moment where he's the wolf and, you know, he's transitioning back into man and she's transitioning into the hawk and they see each other for a second and you're just like, no, you know, and then she turns into a hawk and flies away, you know? And it just reminded me of like that split second where they see each other and it's just like, nope, too late, you know?
Yeah.
And then we get that famous Claire Danes cry.
That cry, man. Ugh.
Iconic.
And she's got the wedding ring on with the like the ball
With the
chain hanging off
hanging.
it. That's like, oh, so
and the way
cool.
she's looking around like she did just wake up from a long nap.
Yeah.
You know? Like, what day is this? You know? I've had that look many times. But yeah, and that cry, I'm not even going to try to imitate it, but like, it's funny, but it's real.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes your cry is bigger than you, that it takes over your body like that. You know?
It's those Claire Danes waterworks.
Yeah.
That's her moneymaker.
She had the good chin quiver.
Yes. And then my
was-
only hang up is that she shoots herself, and it's so neat.
Very clean.
I'm like,
Very clean.
dude, her brains would be
There's
effing
just like
everywhere.
a tiny drop
It was
on
like,
Leo.
It was more like, like it was just like, beep.
A little pinprick.
Yeah, like right there, instead of your head. But
The
yeah,
bodies fall to a very like beautiful
so
pose.
pretty, and the way it pans up, like that aerial view, right, while it's showing you their moments together, their whole relationship, which lasts like 5 minutes,
2 days. Yeah.
you know. But how it ends with that kissing under the water, like so pretty, like that,
Yeah.
so romantic, so pretty, ridiculous,
No.
you know, but so pretty.
Yeah.
And then the ending with the chief of police, which is the
Just
chief prince,
scolding
or
everybody.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Prince, yeah.
Yeah. And then I love how we're wrapping up this story, and we're seeing it through the eyes of these characters, but then you're suddenly looking at like the public, like
Yeah.
the way it gets
Yeah.
grainy, like you're watching this on TV. This is how the public is receiving
You're given
it.
this outside perspective of the events of this movie,
Yes.
so you're just a little removed from everyone involved.
Yeah. And then it ends with exit song for a movie.
So good.
Can we just take a moment to talk about this? Again, Radiohead.
I
Two
did not.
songs in
I
this
did
movie.
not know
Yeah, killing
that
it.
he wrote this song for the movie. I didn't know that.
Yes.
That is
I just
wild.
assumed that it was a B-side for Kid A or something.
No, so Talk Show Host was a B-side, but apparently Baz Luhrmann sent Radiohead like the last 20 minutes of the film, asked them to write a song for it, and they said yes. So I'm just like, what? Because we all know, I mean, Radiohead's so talented, and I adore them, but I think they could be a little bougie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And rightfully so about what they select to work for, but yeah, they wrote this song for the movie.
Yeah.
And it's exit song for a movie. And for me, as a teenage girl in love with Radiohead, with this movie, 2 songs.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, Johnny Greenwood is just sort of...
He's gone on to
have this huge career in composing
For movies.
film scores. That, I mean, this was probably one of his first involvement with
In a
just
movie,
like
yeah.
with a feature.
Well, Tom York did Suspiria.
Yeah,
Right?
he did the main.
Yeah.
He did the main theme from Suspiria.
Yeah.
And like Johnny Greenwood, this year he's done Licorice Pizza and Spencer.
Oh, I didn't know
Is
he did Licorice Pizza.
Probably going to. I mean,
Did he not do the Shaggy Dog, the Kirsten Dunst,
yes,
My
he
favorite
did.
dog.
He did do Power of the Dog.
Power of the
I'm
Dog?
thinking
Not the Shaggy Dog.
Shaggy Dog.
You know what I'm talking about. Power of the Dog. With,
Power of the Dog.
Jane
Okay.
Campion
Yep.
is going to win Best Director for this movie.
But honestly, like this song, walking out of the theater, like so perfect.
yeah,
So
it just fit the tone of it. You're just like, oh my god.
and like Baz Luhrmann, like I'm so envious of his talent and his ability to bring all
and,
this.
Yeah.
and it's so interesting that he doesn't make a lot of movies.
Yeah.
But when they do get made, they are an event. Even something like Australia that maybe isn't great, it's still a sight to be like
beheld.
to be held.
Yeah, to
Have you ever seen
behold.
Australia? Yeah.
Nicole
I mean,
Kidman and
it's
Hugh
this big
Jackman.
Gone with the Wind, like Australian epic. It's not great, but it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah.
Though.
I think for Americans, we're just like, it's fine. But I think in Australia, they're like,
Yeah.
they're Gone with the Wind.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, it's like when you watch this and Moulin Rouge, and you said Strictly Ballroom. It's kind of like they consider Baz and
The Red.
they consider it this trilogy.
Aren't they called the Red Curtain Trilogy?
Red Curtain Trilogy,
Yeah.
Right.
I've never seen Strictly Ballroom.
You'll love it. We should watch it together. That's the night of it. Yeah.
And I'll never forget when Moulin Rouge came out. We were just like
Obsessed.
obsessed.
And you and I both love you. And
I mean,
he's our man.
It's Ewan McGregor.
I mean, I cannot cut him up.
We've covered Moulin Rouge on the podcast.
Yeah, we
with
did an episode
Harper
of
and
it a long
John.
time
That was
ago.
a fun episode.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
But
good to return to Baz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these movies came out. Moulin Rouge in particular came out, and this was, and we refer to this a lot. This was the golden age of the special edition DVD.
Oh yeah.
I can tell that our DVD for Romeo and Juliet and the Moulin Rouge DVD were probably produced around the same time.
Yeah,
Because they just sort of...
yeah, because we didn't have special edition DVDs in
like each other,
1996, but when Moulin Rouge came out, that thing there's so much special. It's just packed, and for people like us, we just wanted to know everything. about
Everything,
these
anything
movies.
I could get my hands on
Yeah.
of Romeo and Juliet. I have the poster. I was telling you guys off mic that I collected these postcards that they had for Romeo and Juliet in the teen magazines of shots of Romeo, and I have them in a box still somewhere. You know, so this has been awesome. I'm so glad we've done this.
It's a fun movie to revisit. I think it holds up really well.
I think so. I mean, I would want to show it to a teenager with fresh eyes. Maybe I'll show it to my niece Isabella in a few years when she opens herself up to love. She's so cute. She's about to get into high school and she's like, I still don't like boys. Or girls. And she's just like, whatever. I'm like, that's right, Mija. You focus on your studies,
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know, I'm like, is it just me or is this movie freaking amazing? Because I still look at it and I'm just
incredible.
like, I mean, now I look at it with the adult eye and I'm like, girl, Mary Paul Rudd,
Yeah. And that's the thing of Romeo and Juliet. The property or what it is, it's so tied to its time, and we can't get around the fact that it's like these are teenagers that are getting married in 2 days and they end up killing each other. All right.
Yeah, they're being run by their hormones and their emotions,
But the material is what I'm trying to say. But this movie, though, it's just like it's so well done that it just doesn't feel dated at all. It feels just as fresh and relevant.
Yeah,
as
totally.
Vintage Leo.
Yeah, and I had read that Baz Luhrmann, when he did this movie, he wanted to do the movie that he felt that William Shakespeare would have directed.
Sure.
Because he felt like William Shakespeare was making his plays for the drunks and the queen.
Yeah.
And and he was a theater man, very theatrical for the people. So he tried to get into that mindset of directing the kind of movie that he thinks William Shakespeare would have directed if he could have made a movie today.
If William Shakespeare was tuning into MTV. At the time.
Yes.
Yes. William Shakespeare wants his MTV.
Oh my God. Well, I think we need to wrap this up.
This was so much fun.
About that time.
This is a saga,
This was no. This was great. This was a lot of fun. Season 4, man. Starting off with some bangers.
We're starting out with a lot of movies that I've been saving for a while. We did kind of a 90s double feature of romances. That, next week's movie is also kind of a 90s romance that I've been waiting to get to. So it's fun to finally get to all of these big movies that we've been waiting for.
And it's fun to finally have you on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I was so excited about this. And just
You're an extra special guest because you are a dear friend of both of ours.
Thank you. No, this has been fun. I love your podcast.
Thank you so much.
At the end of the day, I always tell you guys, it's business. I'd love to come back and be on a podcast episode, but I am no way pushing myself to have been a part of this today and to be in this conversation. Was so freaking awesome. So thank you guys.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Do you want to plug yourself?
Plug myself? Yeah, I'm a jack of all trades. But what's so funny
Tell us about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a life coach. I'm a spiritual life coach, which is so funny because sometimes when I'm talking to my clients, I'm like, I'm actually getting this knowledge from movies that I've seen because I have such a love for film. Yeah. So I'm a spiritual life coach, but I do have an Instagram called Goddess Fix Your Crown because I primarily work with women. I'm into women's empowerment, and just unleashing the goddess in each and every one of us. And so, Goddess Fix Your Crown. Follow me. I also do the Red 813, which is the I Am. And that's a whole spiritual platform. So that's why I'm saying it was so fun to do this because on the side, I'm always talking about emotions, spirituality. And it's just like, man, when I get to hang out with you guys, we talk feelings, but we shoot the shit so much about movies and stuff. And I love that. I love that balance in my life. So, people can follow me there. And if people need some life coaching, I'm here.
Reach out. Awesome. Sounds good. Well, we would love to have you on again in the future.
We'll have you on.
Yeah, we'll confer and think about what our next project will be. But until then, thank you again.
We're going to play you off the top model theme.
And we'll see you next time. Bye. And thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Yes, indeed.
Great episode.
Yeah. Good Valentine's Day material for all of y'all's. We love Espie. She's a great guest. Hopefully we'll have her on again soon.
We will.
Yes, indeed. But in the meantime, I think it is time for some Patreon shout-outs.
Yay!
We want to say hi to all of our wonderful patrons. Hello to Seth, Alberto, Esperanza, Nicole, Susan, Barry, JJ, Leighton, Shelby, Michael, Charlie, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Jimmy, Genevieve, Dawn, Josh, Emma, Melly, Aaron, Melinda, Jim, Jessica, Nick and Shannon, Christine, and Rufino.
Thank you
so much.
Head over to patreon.com/movies that made us gay to check out all of our Patreon exclusives, like our commentary tracks. You may have seen our free commentary tracks that you can check out. We've got 2 free tracks. We've got what are our free tracks on Patreon? They are 10 Things I Hate About You
and Scream.
And Scream 1. Those are our free tracks. So you can take a listen to our commentary, see how those work.
We just did one for Sex and the City 2 in honor of And Just Like That ending.
Yes. And
ending its first season.
And so you can check out and see if you like those commentary tracks. And if you do, then you can contribute to the Patreon and unlock for $10 all of our commentary tracks. There's quite a few of them on there. You can also check out on Instagram. There's a list of all of our Patreon commentaries. So that's all fun over there on patreon.com/movies that made us gay. You can also follow us on social media. We are at Movies That Made Us Gay on Facebook and Instagram.
And on Twitter at MTMUGPod.
Yes, indeed. We'd love it if you could rate and review our show.
Leave us 5 stars.
Give us 5 stars. Give us a good review. You can give us 5 stars on Spotify. You can give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts. All that stuff helps us out a whole heck of a lot in the, podcast sphere over on Apple. So do that whenever you get a chance, and maybe we'll read out one of your, we'll definitely read out your good positive review on an upcoming episode. So head over and check that out. You can also follow us on socials. My name's Pete. I am at Peter Lasagna on Instagram and on Twitter.
I'm Scott Youngballer on Instagram, and follow my letterbox.
Yes, indeed. So check it out. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome back to season 4, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.